helicopter and then do his tour on the ground. After he does that tour on the ground of a few streets, come here to Fire Station 69. At Fire Station 69, he's going to be joined by a bipartisan delegation of Congress members, Democrats and Republicans from California. The mayor of Los Angeles is going to be joining. And look at this. This is quite something to see this chopper, which I think is an Osprey, right above us. That thing is quite majestic and quite dramatic to see in person. I'm sure people that live on LA's west side are going to be hearing some of this as well, although much of this particular neighborhood, as we know, has been shut down ever since the fire happened. Most of this only open to rescue crews and emergency crews and to the media. So we expect the president to touch down. You know, he's watched this on TV. He just described what he's seen here on TV as like a bomb going off in Southern California. But Christine, I know you've been out here in person. When you see it on TV, it's one thing, but when you see it in person, just to see the size and scope of it, that's something that Governor Newsom talked to me about. You know, he's been to Paradise, which was one of the worst fires in the history of California. 85 people killed in that fire, but that was basically one town. This is so massive in terms of its size, not only in Pacific Palisades, but also when you look at Malibu, so much of Pacific Coast Highway, not to mention Altadena, where the president is not going today, which has more damage, more deaths than here in Pacific Palisades. So even President Trump acknowledging that there's going to need to be a lot of help coming for California. Earlier today, the president suggesting that federal aid should potentially be conditional based off of California changing its voter ID laws and changing some of its water policy. You did not hear that same rhetoric, Christine, when the president and the governor were together. Both of them have been going at it for days, but it was interesting to see them together, and they seemed like they were warmer. Let's show you that interaction in full, and then we can talk about it on the back end. Watch.
We just left North Carolina a little while ago. We have that in very good shape. We have the congressman in charge and Michael Watley, and we're going to do a lot of work. We have the Army Corps of Engineers working as they are here, and I think you're going to see some very big progress. They left them high and dry, and now we're going to be taking a little tour with some of the people from the area. I appreciate the governor coming out and meeting me, Kevin, very much, and we'll be talking a little bit. We want to get it fixed. We want to get the problem fixed, and there'll be some ways, but it's like you got hit by a bomb, right?
Yeah.
Like you got hit by a bomb. Would you like to say something?
Most importantly, thank you for being here. It means a great deal to all of us, not just the folks in Palisades, the folks in Altadena that were devastated. We're going to need your support. We're going to need your help. You were there for us during COVID. I don't forget that. And I have all the expectations that we'll be able to work together to get this speedy recovery.
We will. We're going to get it done. Tremendous numbers of lives have been affected. A lot of real estate's been affected. Nobody's ever probably seen anything like this. You could almost say since the Second World War, when you think of it. I mean, nothing like this has happened. And we're going to get it fixed, so we'll get it permanently fixed, so it can't happen again. And again, we'll be talking a little bit later, and we'll get it worked out, okay?
I appreciate it, Mr. President.
Thank you, God. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Both of you have disagreed a lot over the past week over what has happened in this state. How do you plan to
We got to get it finished. We're looking to get something completed, and the way you get it completed is to work together. It's the governor of the state, and we're going to get it completed. They're going to need a lot of federal help. Unless you don't need any, which would be okay.
We're going to need a lot of federal help.
So we're going to take care of things, okay?
I have all the confidence in the world we'll work that out.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
So that federal help that they're talking about could be in the hundreds of billions of dollars. This could be the most expensive disaster in the history of the country, which is why you need to see the President of the United States and the governor working together. Whatever you think about either one of them, and we know everybody watching probably has strong views on both of them, it's important for the people that the two of them work together, because we're going to need a whole lot of help here. President Trump, though, has been suggesting that for the first time in American history, that federal disaster relief would be conditional to policy change in a state. That's never happened before. And he's getting some pushback on that from Republican members of Congress from California. Among them, Representative Young Kim, who is here for the meeting with the president. Before stepping inside there, she talked with me. Take a listen.
I can understand why he's saying it, because, you know, state of California has a lot of problems. I'm not defending any current policies, but it's unrelated.
Unrelated is what she's talking about there in terms of talking about voter ID or water policy and tying that to what we're talking about here. So she's going to be in there. Kevin Kiley, other Republicans will be part of that. The entire Republican congressional delegation have all said that the aid should not be tied to policy changes in California. And in fact, Christine, just from a pure numbers perspective, if all of the Republican members from California stick together on that, Speaker Mike Johnson would not have the votes to pass conditional aid, because he's only got a few vote margin in the House in terms of, the Republican majority. So we'll see what happens on that. Is that just positioning and sort of bluster, or is that something that actually goes forward? Governor Newsom, Senator Schiff, other folks that I've talked to in the last few days all believe that it's essentially bluster and that they're going to get the money in the end. But it's a whole lot of money that we're talking about here, and we're going to need a lot of help, as President Trump just alluded to. Christine.
A couple of things to touch on while we're waiting for the president there to touch down and meet with the media and the mayor. First off, Alex, I can't take my eyes off that background there behind you there in the Palisades, and you're right. I have gone out personally to the fire zones, and to witness the damage, you can't help but feel the shock and say, oh my gosh, as you're looking around and seeing also the way the fire hopscotch. You'll see a home right next to one like you're behind you that is completely standing. So for the president to see this in the air is one thing, to see it on the ground is another. Paint a picture, if you can, of the scene behind you there.
Yeah, so we're right by the Palisades village. This right here completely burned down. You see some of the buildings nearby did not. We know right across the street over there is the Palisades village owned by Rick Caruso. We know now that he employed private firefighters. They were helpful for him in being able to save his property, save the businesses there. Some have accused him of sort of an example of the rich-poor divide. He says it's an example of saving jobs and helping the economy, and that he used private water to do that. As we just see this, here comes, look at that. It's really an astounding thing to see in person as they fly over and get an aerial sense of that. But so much of the neighborhoods around here are just completely decimated. You see cars completely gone, what's left of basketball hoops and everything else, people's lives completely gone. And then there are some streets where you'll see one or two homes that are standing, and then you see others that are completely gone. Okay, so now we're going to look up. So now it appears that the president is in the midst of an aerial tour happening right now. So, you really get a sense of all of this from the air. So the fact that they're moving around like this gives you the sense that they're checking out wide areas of this, because in terms of security, the president of the United States, for him to go anywhere, you have to, they're shutting down a street, then they're shutting down a street. And for him to they can only do so much in terms of that, especially given the recent history, of course, with the assassination attempts on Donald Trump. It's taken up to another level. So the best way for him, the safest way for him to see it is from the air, and that's what's happening right now. And so we're going to see what kind of tone that we see from President Trump today. We know that he toured earlier today in North Carolina. He has been critical of the Biden administration's approach there, saying that they didn't get enough federal aid there fast enough. And he took an opportunity there to go after California. He did it both in Washington and in North Carolina. Here's what he said about FEMA itself. Listen to this.
Will also be signed an executive order to begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. I think, frankly, FEMA is not good. I think when you have a problem like this, I think you want to go and, whether it's a Democrat or Republican governor, you want to use your state to fix it and not waste time calling FEMA. And then FEMA gets here and they don't know the area. They've never been to the area. And they want to give you rules that you've never heard about. They want to bring people that aren't as good as the people you already have. And FEMA's turned out to be a disaster.
And he suggested that maybe it's time to get rid of FEMA, essentially to remove the federal aspect of the federal response and make responses to a disaster a state-by-state issue, which for decades has not been the approach. The thought has been that the federal government sort of works as an insurance system for everybody and is able to help in moments of disaster. When there's a presidential declaration of a disaster, of an emergency, it frees up federal funds to be able to help people, and just like in an insurance company, you have the larger pool, which allows you to have more resources to help. That's been the approach for the federal government for many years. And as we know, California actually pays more money into the federal government than it takes away. There are some states that are so-called taker states that get more from the federal government. California actually pays more in. LA County itself pays about $20 billion into the federal government. So this is an opportunity where California is going to, in need of taking some of that money back. So we're taking a live picture as we see that the chopper is about to land on the ground, and we're going to have an opportunity for the president to get out, to walk on the ground, and to see this up close, Christine.
It is quite a picture to hear the words that you had to say about this whole day and this visit, and to also see this picture here, the president here in Southern California. It is his first trip since the inauguration. He is here with First Lady Melania Trump, and they are in the Palisades area. Alex had referred to the attempts on the president's life, and the president was talking about this being just one visit, one location due to resources, and Alex talked about how much it takes to have a president travel and visit and be on the ground and fly into an airport and go along the streets if needed. So what we're going to have here is the president landing there. He's going to do a roundtable with a number of lawmakers, including Mayor Karen Bass, to talk about what he just witnessed there, perhaps from the air. And we've been covering this fire here in the Palisades. Alex, you were on live covering the fire. You saw Palisades burning. You saw Palisades on fire and destroyed. Now for the president to see this aftermath and for you to be there, right there with the aftermath, has got to be just truly jarring.
It is, and what was so frustrating for those of us that were watching all of that live, and our incredible crews that were doing such a great job on the ground, is for hours we did not see almost any firefighters on a lot of the streets where we had our live cameras showing homes burning. And when some of the fire crews got to some of those neighborhoods in Pacific Palisades, there was not water for them to use. So you think about, is it possible? Look, they were dealing with 100-mile-an-hour winds at the night, and it is, and something was going to burn. But the question that a lot of people have is, could they have limited the damage more than they did? Did it have to be thousands of homes burning? if we had a better infrastructure, if maybe things were pre-deployed in a different way, if that water was working. Those are all questions that neighbors, Democrats and Republicans, are wondering in this community. I'm sure it's something that Donald Trump will bring up. He's brought it up before. He may not bring it up here today. Maybe he's going to be more conciliatory. But there is a lot of frustration and a need, I think, for there to be an after-action report about what exactly happened here. How did this get to be so bad? Because as we know, this is not going to be the last fire. This is not going to be the last time that we have weather conditions like this. We have seen this extreme weather patterns all over the country, and we have to be prepared for this to happen again. The thing that really made the devastation so bad in the Pacific Palisades and in Altadena was the lack of aerial helicopters. We have seen their effectiveness. We have seen their effectiveness in every fire that has happened since, that we have not seen widespread devastation, even though we've had these huge plumes of smoke. What we saw the other day with the Hughes fire, huge plumes of smoke, but they were able to keep the fire away from homes because of the aerial game, the extraordinary efficiency and effectiveness of those helicopters. And they were grounded that night in Pacific Palisades and Altadena because of the weather, and that's the main reason that the fires got to be as bad as they are. Because despite all of the water pressure issues that we talk about here in Pacific Palisades, they had water in Altadena. They didn't have those problems there, and we still saw even more damage there.
As President Trump said when he was meeting with Governor Newsom there on the tarmac at LAX, it looks like you've been hit by a bomb. You haven't seen this since a scene like this since World War II. Let me just talk about some of the people that are supposed to have been taking part in this neighborhood tour here. Obviously, the president, the first lady, the captain of that LAFD Station 69, the chief deputy of emergency services, someone from the LAFD, and also affected homeowners, two of them, Mike and Gabby Shaw. So I don't know if they were in one of those choppers, if they were advising the president as to what happened there. Are they talking to him right now in that chopper, or will they be meeting on the ground? It's only been described as details on the neighborhood tour. That's a short list. And Alex, of course, we've got a very long list for this roundtable, and you can talk about some of the people who are going to be part of that roundtable there on the ground.
Yeah, L.A. Mayor Karen Bass is going to be meeting with him as part of that roundtable, along with L.A. County Supervisor Catherine Barger. We understand that several different members of Congress, all of whom represent the districts impacted, Democrats, and those that do not, Republicans from California, are all going to be there. We know that Governor Newsom was not apparently invited to that roundtable, even though he wanted to be, but Newsom getting that FaceTime with the president on the tarmac there of LAX. You know, they're going to talk about the real issues that are happening here. And there are plenty. We know that President Trump has been talking for years about the idea of forest management, of the need to preventatively get rid of some of the timber and lumber and better manage the forest, something that some environmentalists in California have pushed back against. I was the pool reporter the last two times that the president came here to talk about fire damage, and I talked about it with him both times, this concept of, I mean, people sort of mocked when he said you need to rake the leaves when he talked about that in Paradise, but that's what he's talking about, this idea that we got to clear some of this dead brush, dead trees out in advance so that it doesn't catch on fire. There are some Democrats that agree with that as a concept. They may not like to give President Trump credit, but is there room that the two parties could potentially work together on trying to prevent some of this going forward? That's something that I'm sure President Trump is going to be talking about, that concept today. He talks a lot about the water in our state and whether there needs to be a better, more efficient delivery method from Northern California to Southern California. He's talked about this spigot that you can apparently turn. Most fact checkers don't say there's some giant spigot that you can turn, but I think what Trump is talking about is the idea of how we do water management. There's not a lot of evidence that that's exactly what led to this particular fire situation, but there is a real conversation to be had about water management in this state, and frankly, Is there a better way that we can capture some of the rainwater that we've had? We know that the last 2 or 3 years we had some of our wettest years that we ever had, and so much of that water went out to the Pacific Ocean. Is there a better way to capture it so that when we have situations where we need it, it's there? To that point, though, Governor Newsom points out that most of our state's reservoirs are full right now because we had all of that. But right now we've had, Christine, one of the driest years that we've had. We haven't had rain in almost a year. And we're potentially going to have some this weekend, and now the concern is going to be about mudslides.
Yeah, we're looking right now at some of the damage scenes here in the Palisades area. Truly a heartbreaking picture there, as we've been witnessing all week long, you know, as people have been allowed now to go back into the area, providing they have the proper identification to go in and see their homes. Yes, there is that concern about rain coming this weekend, and the concern of runoff in these fire-ravaged areas and diverting that water away from the ocean. Imagine all the pollutants as you look there and you see burned out vehicles, and you think of the chemicals, and you think of everything that burned, from couches to refrigerators to gas and oil, everything that comes into what we consider things that we use in our daily lives. Now they're in rubble there on the ground. Palisades had so much damage. Now you see a live picture there of that roundtable. You can see that it looks like officials that are going to take part in this roundtable are already there in place, ready to go. We saw the video there, or the live shot actually, of the president and the first lady getting off of the helicopter. So they have now landed. You saw some black SUVs there. So I'm guessing from the helicopter to the SUVs, they're making their way to that fire station there in the Palisades. And Alex, it's quite an honor, you might say, to be able to speak to the President of the United States about this issue. What do you make of Governor Gavin Newsom not getting that invite, but taking the opportunity to be there on the tarmac to say a few words, and they jointly said a few words with open mic there? But he's not invited to this roundtable. Does that make sense to you?
No. It doesn't make sense to me that you would think that the governor of the state would be there. We know that there's been tension in the relationship between Trump and Newsom, which is interesting because if you actually think about what happened during COVID and during some of our other wildfires, Trump and Newsom had a really good working relationship. I mean, that's been written about in books that during COVID, Newsom probably had the best relationship with Trump of any Democratic governor. Often what Newsom would do publicly that other Democratic governors wouldn't do was praise the president, which is something we know that the president likes when he's given credit for things. We saw Newsom basically doing that on the tarmac here today, that the two of them liked each other. I mean, I was there for both of their meetings. I was there for the first time that they ever met, and you could see that there was something that Donald Trump appreciated about Gavin Newsom, somebody who is, seen as powerful and wealthy and good on TV and handsome and a lot of things that Donald Trump frankly appreciates. And the two of them mixed it up pretty well. We have seen as of late that relationship has soured publicly. Donald Trump calling him new scum, which is not something that he was calling him during that time of COVID and all the rest of it when they were getting along better. We know that Gavin Newsom, of course, may be a presidential candidate in 2028, that the Republican Party may have a political incentive for damaging him a little bit. And we know that Donald Trump has not been appreciative of some of what Gavin Newsom has said about him publicly, and vice versa. That being said, let's hope they're able to get beyond some of that and work together, because we have so much need going forward. But it was, I think, Christine, that handshake between the two of them, just from a pure politics perspective, is actually good politics for both of them. It allows both of their supporters to maybe calm down a bit. It makes both of them look a little bigger, that they're able to work with the other side, and hopefully it allows some good governance in our state.
I would love to have been a fly on the wall, so to speak, when they first met there, when the president walked off the plane there. We did not have a microphone there to hear the words. You could see that Governor Newsom was a bit animated, using some hand gestures there and talking to the president, not sure what he was saying. I do know he said, "We need your help," and then the two approached the media there and gave some joint statements. But you're right, it is quite the picture of unity, perhaps, on this matter, if nothing else. Quite the picture showing that we need one another to get through this difficult chapter here in Los Angeles. I'm wondering, though, about that roundtable where you have those members of Congress, those from the region affected by the fires, and then others who are not. Kevin Kiley, Darrell Issa, Tom McClintock. It's their chance to meet with the man now, President of the United States.
It is, and the Republican congressional delegation, when Southern California was on fire that weekend, they already had a pre-existing trip plan to Mar-a-Lago. So all of the Republicans that represent California, with the exception of David Valadao, all were in Mar-a-Lago as those images were seen all around the world, and they were meeting with President Trump. And I spoke to many of them during our recent trip to Washington for the inauguration, and they told me that they were talking with him about the issue of wildfires then in real time, and that President Trump was talking about that California is going to need a lot of help and suggesting that he was going to be there to do that. They all have pushed back on this idea of conditional aid for California based off of policy disagreements, and they seem to think that he was with them. The thing that's challenging and complicated for covering Donald Trump is he sometimes says completely opposite things on the same day. So just a few hours ago, he was suggesting that we need to get rid of FEMA and that aid would be conditional. He lands with Governor Newsom a day after calling him an idiot and suggesting that he didn't know if he would meet with him, and they're, hugging it out, and he's saying that he's going to be there for California and all the rest of it. So, which one is it? Because those are directly opposite positions. We'll see going forward which one it is. Most Democrats privately believe that in the end of the day, the federal aid will be there, and they certainly hope so, because it is hard to imagine how California finds all of that money. There's only one entity in our entire country that literally has the ability to print money, and that's the federal government. California has to balance its books. Doesn't always do a good job of doing that. So I want to play for you right now what we're talking about. If you missed it earlier, this was President Trump talking about potential conditions for aid for California. Here it is.
I want to see two things in Los Angeles: voter ID, so that the people have a chance to vote, and I want to see the water be released and come down into Los Angeles and throughout the state. Those are the two things. After that, I will be the greatest president that California has ever seen.
The president, now we understand, is meeting with different residents, including the fire captain, Christine.
Yeah, we talked about that list of people that were going to be able to meet with the president. I didn't know if they were going to be on one of the choppers, but it sounds like you're saying now that is on the ground. We have that list that has been released by the White House. Captain Jeff Brown, he's the chief of the LAFD Station 69, and Jason Hing, chief deputy of emergency services, and from the LAFD, Emily Bianchi. And then they named only two homeowners, so I'm not sure if you're hearing that he's actually meeting with a group of homeowners. The names we were given are Mike and Gabby Shaw, and I'm not sure where they live in the Palisades or why it is that they were chosen to be the two to meet with the President of the United States. Are you hearing perhaps that there are even more residents allowed to meet, and is that a visual for you? Is it nearby where you can see?
Tough to tell where we're positioned right now. I think there may be some more homeowners that may be a part of the roundtable or that may be at the fire station who have an opportunity to say hello to him. As you know, this area is closed to homeowners. You can't get here. So they would essentially need to be invited here. As we take a look, you can see all the media that's here. These are reporters not only locally, but from around the country and from around the world. We hear folks from Australia just near us and folks from other countries that are here, which gives you a sense of just how much is going on here. And down a ways is the fire station. It's tough to see it exactly, even though we're about a block away because of all these cameras. It's hard to see exactly who's going in and out of there, although a lot of them have to walk past us where we are. But as you see here, there's a security roadblock here, the police and street services keeping this area blocked, and there's extra heightened levels of security because the president is here. But it's difficult to get in and out of this neighborhood. We do know that some residents are being allowed, if they line up in a long line, they get a yellow tag on their car. They're taken into this neighborhood with a police escort. But you think about folks that have now been out of their home, even if they still have their home, haven't really been able to be inside it or spend much time there for weeks, and you wonder how long this is going to go. We have not been given any sort of timeline for these people. So, essentially for this neighborhood, it's like time stopped right when those fires started, and people have completely upended their lives and no indication when they might be able to go back. Although, think about it, Christine, it's got to be so difficult, the idea of even going back to the neighborhood and seeing all your neighbors' homes gone, and not to mention, the air quality and all the toxicity in the rubble. You think about what happened on 9/11, and so many of the rescue crews that spent time in that rubble got cancer and died because it was not safe to be around it. And you think about everything that burned in this neighborhood. Is it safe, even if your home is there, for you to be breathing that in all the time and to be around it? And I don't know if we have a real answer to that.
Alex, we know rebuilding in something like this can take, I'm hearing, 2 to 4 years. But Steve Soboroff, who's in charge of the rebuild concept with Mayor Karen Bass, said we've got an A to Z. We're right now at A, so it is indeed a process. You may know from my social media that I went into Altadena with a friend of mine to see his home, and what was so jarring for me is his home burned to the ground, that home to the left burned to the ground, across the street burned to the ground, this home right next to him still standing. And I had to wonder how much that resident would want to come back to that home, seeing all that devastation there day in and day out, knowing that all that cleanup was going to happen, the removal of all the debris, the soil, the air, and just the pain of not having your neighbors there with you. While I was there with my friend Harlan, a neighbor from across the street was also checking out her home, as was the neighbor here. They were just kind of bewildered, just kind of looking at everything. And Harlan and the neighbor, they came and did a really warm embrace. And I could feel the togetherness and the love. They made sure they had each other's phone numbers. How are you doing? How are you doing? And the neighbor, she came running over with a stack of mail. She said, my mailbox didn't burn down. I've got mail. How are you doing? How are you doing? And the neighbor, she came running over with a stack of mail. She said, my mailbox didn't burn down. I've got mail. And then kind of chuckled, probably bills. But she goes, I've got mail. And it was just the little things. And Alex, I don't know if I think we all know somebody affected by these fires, but I'm thinking with my friend, the things that survived, 2 coffee mugs, the sign on their door, and 2 little bookends. And we're like, out of everything that you had there, that's all that survived. So, Alex, we're looking right now at President Trump on the ground with Melania Trump. They're talking to fire officials there, and it sounds like they are possibly also talking with some residents. But we have that ground shot there now where you see the President of the United States, who's just been inaugurated, now on the job. This is his first trip, his first travels, his first leaving of D.C. He was in North Carolina this morning, and now he's here in Southern California with our fire damage. And then he's off to Vegas. It's a short visit. It's not an overly long trip here. But, Alex, you can talk about the conversation they might be having with these fire officials, being that you covered the fires as Palisades was burning.
Yes, and it is now the top of the hour, so we want to, if people are just joining us, welcome to a special edition of the Fox 11 News at 5 o'clock, on at 4 o'clock today, because we've got sports here on Fox 11. I'm Alex Michelson, broadcasting live from Pacific Palisades. My colleague Christine Devine back at our studio in West L.A. We are watching this historic trip. President Trump, I think we're now being allowed to move, so we're going to move. Okay.
All right. We'll
Christine, why don't you take over for a second?
Sure.
We'll see what's happening over here.
We'll let you do what you have to do. Alex Michelson has had quite the week being in Washington, D.C. to cover the inauguration after having covered the wildfires, and now back here hitting the ground running to cover everything needed to bring you the news about our fire recovery. And here you have President Trump there making his way down a Southern California street with members of the fire department there, the captain of Fire Station 69 there in the Palisades area, talking about what they're seeing there, what they've seen from the air. Just minutes ago, the president was in Marine One, the helicopter, touring the scene from the air. And you can see the hat he's wearing, Make America Great Again. And there you have them just taking a look at the neighborhood. I believe that is Jason Hing there to my left there from the LAFD Station 69. And also, I'm going to think that might be Captain Jeff Brown, because that is the list of the two names we were given from the fire departments there. Also affected homeowners, three of them, a woman named Emily and Mike and Gabby Shaw, affected homeowners there. I don't see them in that shop, but right there, I got to think those are the two that were named there from Fire Station 69. Imagine being those firefighters, getting the call or finding out or smelling or hearing or knowing that their neighborhood that they love and cover and work in is burning, and there's nothing much they can do about it given the firestorm and the craziness of the weather, Alex, during that Palisades and Altadena fire.
The crazy weather, the lack of aerial support, and the lack of water pressure in Pacific Palisades. So, if you're just watching us, I think we just saw an example of mob mentality, of everybody moving over. We're now back here and trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. I don't think that was much, but we continue to watch President Trump as he sees all this up close, and you wonder if seeing this up close may change his tone a little bit when it comes to conditional aid. A lot of the Republican Congress members that I talked with in Washington privately were suggesting, okay, maybe when you see it, maybe you're going to have a bit of a different perspective. We talked about this with Brett Baier, the anchor of Fox News, who knows the president so well, knows his thinking so well, and he suggested that he thought that there would be a different tone from President Trump after he's actually on the ground, after he sees it for himself, that his perspective on this might change. And if the president changes his tone, then Speaker Mike Johnson and other Republicans in Congress would almost have no choice but to follow him. There is no doubt from a political perspective right now that Donald Trump is the leader of the Republican Party. It is his party. They pretty much do whatever he wants them to do. So if he says we're going to go forward with this aid, that aid is going to go forward, which is why I think it's so important for folks like Governor Newsom, Mayor Bass, and some of the Republican members of Congress here to have this opportunity to talk with the president and to try to convince him about the importance of this going forward.
Well, the president already, to Governor Gavin Newsom, said this is a scene we haven't seen anything like this since World War II. He was in North Carolina surveying hurricane damage there this morning, and now our scene here. We see the president walking again, and I'm thinking that is with the LAFD Captain Jeff Brown, and also from that fire station as well, Jason Hing. I'm thinking what it must be like for them to describe to the president what they were up against. Alex, you were talking about President Trump having his own ideas as to what needs to be done in California. But to live that moment, to live that day, to live that fire experience is a whole different story. And looks like now the homeowners The residents that are being invited to meet the president are now there with him. The names we were given were Emily Bianchi and Mike and Gabby Shaw. And there you see the First Lady greeting them and moving in for a hug, which is understandable during these very, very painful times where lives have been changed forever. The president there also talking to them. Pacific Palisades is going to have to be... Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
I was just going to say, it's notable that the First Lady, Melania Trump, came on this trip. We know during the campaign she did not appear very often with the president. She has not usually traveled with him in the past. So the fact that she felt it was important for her to be here, for her to publicly show her support, is notable. And you got to give her some credit for being a part of this, too. It's nice to see her here.
Look, she's a mother. She can feel for every parent who has their life upended at this point in time, where children are being moved around to strange new places in the middle of the start of the school year, the next semester of the school year. I can feel for her wanting to be there for everybody who's tried to build a home and build a family and build a life, knowing that their lives are now changed forever. To be selected to meet with the president, I'm not sure how that happens. Out of all the homeowners that are there, how is it that these people, Emily Bianchi, Mike and Gabby Shaw, were selected? I don't know if they're involved perhaps with the neighborhood councils there in that area, or very active perhaps with their fire department in some fashion. But it would be interesting to hear from them and to get their backstory as well. And I'm sure they feel a great weight in carrying a message for the rest of the homeowners to the President of the United States. Alex, can you imagine how important it is for them to convey some very important messages?
And with respect, usually during a presidential visit like this, during the first Trump term, he would have local pool reporters with him, so we would be able to give you some of that local perspective and talk to them. Unfortunately, during this trip, maybe it's because they just been in office for a few days, they did not invite any local reporters into the pool to try to get some of those details. Hopefully, our national colleagues are able to get that for us, but hopefully in the future, we would be able to do something like that on the ground. And back to the idea of the First Lady, I wonder if her presence here and her thoughts on this may soften the president's take a little bit. He has been open in the past sometimes about how she weighs in on things and how sometimes it does change his thinking. I know people have their preconceived notions about her, but she does have a role in advising him and in sharing her perspective. And I'm curious how privately, that may or may not influence what happens when it comes to California.
I think it doesn't matter what party you affiliate with and how you voted. When you're in the middle of a disaster and a disaster zone, to have your president and to have your First Lady come speak with you speaks volumes. I think that no matter, again, as I said, how you voted, I think that she's a calming force as you see her there on the ground meeting with them. It makes it feel perhaps maybe a little bit more comfortable and less just officials. Perhaps somebody with a little caring eye in a different perspective than just policy and getting matters done, and a lot on his plate. We know that the president has been extremely busy with policy and signing new measures and changing the face of government to his liking, to his taste, to the things he campaigned about. And it's been a very, very busy week since Inauguration Day. And here you have his first visit to our disaster zone and North Carolina as well.
Yeah, and you think about, this area, there are a lot of Trump supporters that live in Pacific Palisades. This is a more conservative area than Los Angeles as a whole. This is an area that voted for Rick Caruso over Karen Bass with like 65% of the vote. This is a wealthy area with a lot of people who frankly benefit from some of President Trump's tax breaks. I wouldn't be surprised if he spent a lot of time here in Pacific Palisades hanging out with some of his friends at their homes. And so I don't know if these this family are Trump supporters. My guess is that they probably are. But this is not a hardcore Democratic area. This is a place where there's a lot of people that like Donald Trump's message before this happened and after this happened. And I think that's part of what LA County Supervisor Catherine Barger has talked about. Altadena has a lot of those folks too. You know, this is not just Democrats here. There are plenty of Republicans who like the president and would like his help in this moment of need.
I would love to hear the conversation that they're having, but I'm sure it's so deeply personal for those homeowners. They've suffered tremendous loss. Altadena, even more so, with so much loss of life there in that area. But imagine how your life changes so dramatically when you go through something like this, and everything you've known for a certain point of time is literally gone. Your schools change, where you shop changes, your work changes, and the rebuilding concept, Steve Soboroff said, please don't feel forced to move or sell, that we want to rebuild. If you want to stay in your community, work with us so that we can rebuild. And I'm not sure how these homeowners are feeling about rebuilding or staying, but they got their time with the president. He's now moving on there to perhaps make his way to that roundtable where you have lawmakers meeting with the president. You have the mayor meeting with the president. No, it looks like he's making his way now to another set of homeowners. All right, so we had a list of 3 people, and now it looks like he's meeting 2 more. And we're going to listen in on this one.
Yeah, and I was out in the neighborhood earlier and interviewed somebody named Jake Steinfeld, who a lot of people will recognize that name as Body by Jake, one of the biggest fitness influencers before that was a thing for decades. They call him the unofficial mayor of the Palisades. He's been living here for 30 years. His home burned. Many of his neighbors' homes are still standing. And he said that it was really important for him to rebuild, that he was excited about the president's presence here today, that for him, it gives him hope to see the president here, that he likes the idea of a businessman and a builder moving in to hopefully cut through some of the red tape and to help this community move forward. He said that, you know, some people were thinking about, do I move on? Do I go to another neighborhood? And he says, I love the Palisades. I want to be here. He also talked about the sort of shock to the system of losing all of your stuff. He had a moment he talked about with his wife, where he would usually ask her, what should I wear today? And then he said that instinctively and realized that he had no clothes. There was nothing, there was no choice in terms of what to wear today. And this idea of starting over, he's, you know, been fortunate and worked really hard and done well and felt like, you know, he's going to be okay at the end of the day. But still, he said, you know, it's such a jarring experience to go through. And the biggest loss is the sense of community, that his neighbors, they all love each other. They look out for each other. Pacific Palisades is a community that is kind of urban and suburban at the same time. You think about it, it's near the city, but it also, you know, has very safe streets where a lot of the kids growing up in that community go to school together and that know each other. It's a place where you can play outside. And that is a real sense of loss for people right now as well.
It's funny you mentioned items that you take for granted, like what shirt am I going to wear today? Speaking with my friend who lost his home in Altadena, he escaped with like 4 or 5 shirts, 4 or 5 shoes. And you think of how limited the wardrobe is when you're used to having perhaps a closet full of stuff. And we also interviewed somebody, Alex, who was actually an LAFD firefighter who lost his own home, tried to save his home, but it burned to the ground. He actually suffered some burns. He also helped neighbors escape. He said, I'm so tired of people saying, it's just stuff. You've lost stuff. Everyone's lucky to be alive. You know, and I'm thinking, too, I was on standby to evacuate. We packed up some of our stuff at my home, and you think of how much of your stuff you can't bring with you just because you don't have the space in the car or because you're rushing. And I kind of said to one of the neighbors at my friend's, but we like our stuff. It took me a while to accumulate my stuff. Of course, lives first. That's number one. But now for these people who have so little, and some escaped with nothing, zero. I mean, my friend who had time to pack up just got 1 carload of stuff. We went to Ross and purchased suitcases because he didn't have a suitcase. It's little things that you take for granted. Let me go grab that, and that isn't there anymore.
Right. And Jake Steinfeld talked about the fact that he's an obsessive dad who saved all of his kids' artwork, all of his kids' report cards, all of these mementos, and none of that can be replaced. You could buy maybe another jacket, but you can't replace all of that. I'm curious, Christine, for you and your family in that moment, what did you decide to bring and what did you decide to leave behind?
Well, funny you bring that up because I was actually in South America, out of the country at the time, so I had to go through the house in my mind and think, all right, where is that family photo album, and is that the one album that makes it in the car because there's only so much room? Got the dogs, got their crate. You know, I think I had my valuables paper-wise in one backpack ready to go. That was easy. But I'm thinking after this, Alex, I'm going to reorganize and get all that stuff in a better to-go box, in a better place, not scattered here. Yeah, grab that insurance paper there and grab that home document there. It really needs to be in one spot ready to go, especially all of us living in earthquake country. You know, a wildfire may not affect you, somebody, but earthquake country could affect all of us. And just to be a little more organized, even though I work in this business, we talk about this, I am fairly organized. You realize that a disaster, when you've got to go out the door in a matter of hours because you see fire over the ridge and you've got an evacuation warning, how little of the stuff makes it.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've learned that I hadn't really thought of before all this, talking to a lot of these insurance experts, is that all of us right now should think about going around our home and taking pictures and videos and sending them to the cloud so that you have documentation, not physical documentation, but digital documentation of what is in your home, which would make it much easier for you to go through the insurance process. So that's something that even if you don't necessarily live in a fire-prone area, who knows, there could be a random house fire, or there could be something that happens with an earthquake, or all the rest of it. So it's a good idea to start that process of documenting your home now, so you have it. And I, you know, frankly, had never thought of that before all this happened.
We are watching President Trump. They're on the move. They have already met with at least one group of homeowners. It appeared to be another couple that the president had met with after this aerial tour of the Palisades area. The governor, Governor Newsom, also saying, basically, don't forget Altadena as well. We're thinking of Altadena as well. The president said due to resources, he's making just the one stop here, and that is the Palisades area. They're headed right towards, I think, perhaps the fire station now, Fire Station 69, and there you see the firefighters there in uniform, there to greet the President of the United States. This is in the Palisades area here of Southern California, and there they have that very professional salute and welcome there to one another. What it must be like for these firefighters to meet the President of the United States after going through what they have gone through, a devastating disaster here in Southern California. The president even saying, it looks like you've been hit by a bomb. Alex.
Yeah, I think our camera might be close enough now. Let's try to listen in. And, you know, politically, he did extraordinarily well with first responders, with firefighters, with cops, with people in the military. I mean, by and large, these guys are exactly Donald Trump's demographic politically, and a lot of them really love him. And even though many of them live in a very blue county, no doubt many of these people are Trump supporters. Not all of them, but no doubt many of them are. And you can see Donald Trump is often very comfortable around a lot of these guys and has respect for these guys. And let's listen.
People out there. So you saved your firehouse. Thank you, Mr. President. It's an honor. It's not going to go fast. It's already going fast. Let's see what's happening. Could be a lot of people. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Congratulations.
So much respect.
Welcome back, sir. We miss you.
Appreciation for our firefighters. It seems like Southern California has really come together in embracing our first responders.
We're going to do something over here.
Looks like they're setting up for a group photo there. A moment in time to capture on camera that these firefighters are sure to never forget, meeting the President of the United States during a very, very difficult time. And Alex, we have you here on camera here. Yeah, go ahead. Your thoughts.
And whatever you think about Donald Trump politically, and we know that there are very dramatically different thoughts on him politically. If you ever get an opportunity to spend time with him personally, which I have, he's an extraordinarily charismatic person in the room. It's part of the reason he got to be the President of the United States. That is also the case. You think of Democratic presidents like Barack Obama or Bill Clinton or George W. Bush, Republican president, that really have these sort of outsized personalities that when they are with you, they make you feel like you're the center of the universe, that they're fun, that they're engaging in person, and they have the ability to lift up the people around them. That is true when it comes to Donald Trump, and you're seeing that impact not only the office itself being around the person who is the president and the Secret Service and Marine One and all of that, but Trump himself does have that ability, and I think you're seeing that on display right now.
Well, look, they're going to be talking policy, and the president has been critical already of California's policy when it comes to water management and perhaps the way this fire was battled or not. And so that could be a question of, and come into contention and discussion as he meets with lawmakers. And as time goes on, what does he plan to do with FEMA or not? What kind of aid comes to California or not? Governor Newsom said, we need your help. And the president said, we're going to get it done. What does that mean? We don't know. So I would say pro or con, no matter how you voted or not voted, as we're seeing a natural and a disaster here in Southern California, I think you want to hear from your president. You want to see your president on the ground. You want to see your president make a visit and meet with the lawmakers like Mayor Karen Bass and Supervisor Catherine Barger, who are going to be dealing with this and dealing with California's recovery.
And we're now getting our first look inside of the round table that is set up and ready to go for the president. You know, I don't think the president is very far. I think he's a few blocks from where we are right now, which is just a few steps away from that firehouse where that round table is. So once he gets in, of course, there's no traffic when you're driving in the Beast, as they call the presidential vehicle. So he should be able to get over here pretty quickly. But as we get a look at, maybe we can take this picture full and get a sense of some of the folks that are assembled there, and you see it is you know, some folks from the different members of Congress, folks from LA County Sheriff, it looks like some representatives of the National Guard. You see Congressman Brad Sherman there, and so it is nice to see. We see the sign that says we're in this together, and it is nice to see that we really do have a bipartisan contingent, which you don't see on that many issues. And you think about L.A. Mayor Karen Bass and President Trump, they certainly have so many political differences, but it's nice to see that she's seated so closely to where the president is going to be as well.
I believe to my right there, I believe that was LAPD Chief Jim McDonnell, and then it possibly is the fire chief there as well. To meet with them, we see Supervisor Catherine Barger as well. We're in this together. Alex, I'm wondering your perspective. We have this delegation of Republican Congress members invited into this Palisades area, and it is their chance to meet with their president, who was just had his inauguration, but what message they are meant to carry back to Washington when it comes to fighting for Southern California, because not all of them are from the Los Angeles area. How important is it that they hear what's going on here in Southern California, our city?
But as we know, Christine, fires is not contained to Southern California in terms of a problem. The biggest fires in the history of the state have all been in Northern California and Central California. So although this one may not be their fight, they know that they probably are going to have a fight for one of their own soon. And when this happened in the past, they needed the government to be there. So it has been pretty remarkable, and in my opinion, which I really shouldn't be giving, but great to see that Republicans and Democrats have been standing together for the people of Southern California, saying we need help, we need to get them aid. You know, I don't know if we've got some sound, maybe we can get queued up from young Kim, who's in that room there, and she sort of talked about that message with me not too long ago, and what the message that she wants to give to the president. Let me know if we have that sound. Here's some of that. This is some of what you might be hearing from some of the Republicans.
I can understand why he's saying it, because, you know, state of California has a lot of problems. I'm not defending any current policies, but it's unrelated.
So that was young Kim essentially saying that this idea of conditional federal aid is unrelated. Let's give you some context on what she was talking about there. The president earlier talking about potentially putting conditions on that FEMA aid.
I'll also be signing an executive order to begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. I think, frankly, FEMA is not good. I think a problem like this, I think you want to go and, whether it's a Democrat or
FEMA, he also talked about the idea earlier, and that was during a similar roundtable that he held in North Carolina, by the way. He also talked about the idea of potentially putting a condition on California's FEMA aid, tying it to California getting a voter ID law, or California changing its statewide water policy. What young Kim was talking about is essentially that that's not related here. That's its own issue. She agrees that those things need to be taken care of, but it's not really what's at stake here. Let's help the people here, her perspective, and then we can talk about the rest of that. But the need here is urgent and real. And when you look around, Christine, it is clear that the need is urgent and real. It's part of the reason why California yesterday passed a $2.5 billion bill to try to get wildfire relief money coming out now. Their expectation is that that money will be reimbursed by the federal government, reimbursed by FEMA, but as they can tell, that process might take a while, which is why California is fronting the money now to try to get the debris removal process underway soon, because you know, this debris is toxic, and it's going to be a process of getting all this stuff out of here so that it's safe for people to come back here before they can even begin the process of rebuilding.
You know, I couldn't help but think of Karen Bass as we saw her picture there, the mayor of Los Angeles, former congresswoman, who was a possible pick for Joe Biden for his vice president, and what it might be like if Kamala Harris had won and she were meeting with these members of Congress, and she were talking about California policy, given the president's word about possibly ending FEMA. President Trump has been very critical of the Biden administration and their handling of the hurricane and relief there in North Carolina, and also critical of California's policy with water coming down to Southern California or being diverted elsewhere. So if you had a Democratic president being elected, I wonder how much the conversation would be different. And Alex, you might have perspective on that. You've interviewed everybody.
Entirely different. I mean, we know how it would be different because Joe Biden was just the president. Kamala Harris was vice president. And they approved 100% of federal aid, 100% for the next 6 months. Governor Newsom texted Joe Biden asking for help. He got an immediate text back saying that they were going to give help. And he did 3 different federal disaster relief declarations within 24 hours. Joe Biden, I was there when he had a similar meeting in a firehouse in Santa Monica right after the fires, and he pledged the complete support of the federal government. Kamala Harris pledged that as well. I mean, this is something that the Democrats were worried about. At the Democratic National Convention, I talked with Mayor Karen Bass and over the months have talked with Governor Newsom about their fears that if Donald Trump was elected president, what it would mean for California and the tension between the two. And the fact that Governor Newsom described it as tailwinds and headwinds, essentially saying that if you got a Democratic president from California who was part of the evacuation zone herself, her house, that she basically would say yes to whatever they wanted. And Donald Trump is apparently not saying yes to whatever they wanted. There are some people that are watching this right now that think that, yeah, there should be some conditions. California's leaders have screwed this up. We don't necessarily trust that they're going to do a good job. They haven't been very good at spending when it comes to homelessness. There were problems that led to this fire in the first place. Maybe there needs to be some tougher rules here. I know there are people that are watching this that feel that way. There are other people that are watching this that feel that, you know, we are in a moment of crisis. It's not the time to play politics. It's insulting to be bringing that up right now. You know, help us. And so I'm well aware that we have different viewers with different perspectives on that issue. But one thing that is certainly clear is that this would be a completely different universe if Kamala Harris was president of the United States right now and not Donald Trump.
Well, that is not the case, but we did see Kamala Harris tour the Altadena fire zone and meet with firefighters there. It was literally the first thing she did, along with her husband, Doug Emhoff, when they returned to California on Inauguration Day after being in the services and ceremonies. Right now, we understand people are walking into that room there for that roundtable, so we're going to keep an eye on that and interrupt that as we need to. But right now, as we look at that room here, I'm thinking Governor Newsom's term is going to come to an end not too far from now. And the thought is, Alex, is Kamala Harris going to run for governor, in which she would be dealing then with President Trump on matters like this?
Right? Because we know that this matter is not going away anytime soon. And then the next governor is also going to be here for the Olympics in 2028. And then you think about LA, we're going to be hosting the World Cup in 2026, the Super Bowl in 2027, and then the Olympics in 2028. The governor's term goes until January 2027, at which point there will be a new governor. It's not clear if Kamala Harris is going to be that person. The fact that she chose to go to the fires first and alerted the local press in a way that she hadn't really done for a long time gives the indication that she's at least trying to keep her options open on that front. I don't know if she's made a decision. By all indications, I don't think she has, one way or another, but I do think that she wants to keep that as a potential for her. I think there are other people in her camp that want to keep open the potential of her running for president in 2028, and who knows, maybe the answer is that she doesn't run for anything. Kamala Harris has been in elective office every day since 2003 without a break, and so this now is the first time that she's ever been not in office. The vice president, former vice presidents, lose their Secret Service protection 6 months after their office term is over. So, you know, she's had the trappings of that office, which puts you in a real bubble just because of all that protection. Some of that is, you know, slowly going away, and not that she's going to live life as an average citizen, but it's a different life that she's about to embrace and be a part of, and we'll see, you know, what her gut instinct tells her in terms of where to go next.
Well, certainly she can continue to be a voice for Democrats in whatever capacity she wants, whether it's writing a book, public speaking, teaching, traveling the world as an ambassador of some sort. And I think the signal that she sent by coming immediately to California's disaster zones was quite strong. That either she wanted to send a message from the Biden administration that had just exited, literally, and the voice being that she is from California, from Oakland, her husband, and they have their home in Brentwood. You got to think they had friends who lost homes in the Palisades fire, perhaps. She chose to go to Altadena first and meet there and make that statement and go on the microphone there and be seen on Inauguration Day after having been right there as the inauguration happened for President Trump, as she sat there with the other presidents there. Her first move was to come back home to California to the biggest story of 2025.
Right, and I think that was done on purpose, and that was, and it also sends a message that she chose Altadena over Pacific Palisades. The demographics of Altadena are a little bit more in line with the traditional Democratic base, and so that was interesting to see. As we look at this live picture from inside this fire station, I'm just going to share some of the folks that are inside. It looks like, if you're looking on the right side of your screen, you have Congressman Jay Obernolte, Congressman Kevin Kiley. These are all Republicans. Republican Congressman Young Kim. Sitting next to her is George Whitesides, the Democratic congressman who just defeated Mike Garcia in Santa Clarita. Sitting next to Whitesides is Congresswoman Judy Chu, who represents Altadena, which is the home of the Eaton fire. And then you see other emergency crews there, along with, as you mentioned, Christine, the LAPD chief, Jim McDonnell, relatively new on that job, but of course we all know him from his stint before as the LA County Sheriff. On the left side of your screen, you see Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles. To her right is Vince Fong, who is a Republican congressman from the Bakersfield area, who took over the seat once held by Congressman Kevin McCarthy. And then the rest of them are not in view, so I can't tell you who they are. But that gives you a sense that you got people from all over the state, some, you know, hardcore Democrats that are pretty to the left, some that are more centrist in purple districts, some more center-right, and some that are pretty hardcore right. All here, all with a similar message, though, about the need for aid.
Alex, so we have Mayor Karen Bass, who looks like she will sit right next to the First Lady or the President himself, probably the First Lady there. And tell me again, the gentleman there on the, I'm looking to my right, the white shirt there across from the mayor is?
Yeah, I'm not, honestly, it is hard for me to tell exactly who that is based off of my little screen that I'm looking at. So I'm not quite sure. I was wondering that myself. I don't know if that's, yeah, I don't know.
Well, everybody else you named,
it's hard to do.
Yeah, I feel like I'm watching an issue of The Issue Is, because you have pretty much interviewed all of those people there in some capacity. And
this week.
Yeah,
I interviewed all of them this week. we were in Washington.
Yeah.
We were literally in the offices of every single one of those people within the last week, talking about these issues, and now they're all together. I understand that Congressman Ted Lieu is also here, who's been a real Trump critic, over the years, and kind of trolled him on social media. He's the vice chair of the Democratic caucus, but he is here. Brad Sherman is here. He represents a lot of the Pacific Palisades area that is impacted by this. He's, you know, a more liberal Democrat as well. So you do see some representation from both sides of the aisle, which is good. That this isn't just a sort of a Republican cheerleading episode or vice versa. It'll be interesting to see if they are given an opportunity to speak, what their message is, what their needs are. You know, for a lot of these, especially Democratic members of Congress, they don't get a lot of opportunity to get FaceTime with President Trump. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. And from all indications are, this is all going to be in front of the cameras. Sometimes they'll move the cameras out, and then they get to have the real conversation. But we know that President Trump, which as TV people we appreciate, likes to do things in front of the camera. And so it looks like this will be done in front of the cameras.
Alex, as I'm looking at this table here and the setup, you have the mayor, Karen Bass, front and center there, a Democrat. But it looks to the back of the table next to Jim McDonnell, from chief of the LAPD. That's Kristen Crowley, right? The LA Fire Department chief. And if that is the case indeed, yes, she's quite far away from the mayor. And being that we're dealing with fires, I'm noticing she's not right there at the front of the table there to talk about the fires.
Well, that symbolism may not be lost based off of the recent interactions between the mayor of Los Angeles and the fire chief, who, of course, said on our air to our Gigi Graciette, something that got picked up around the world, that city leaders had failed the fire department and the people of Los Angeles based off of their actions in trying to cut the fire budget. That was definitely not the talking point of the day that Mayor Bass was trying to get out there. After that, we know that Crowley was called in for, by all intents and purposes, a very tense meeting. The Daily Mail reported that she lost her job, which turned out to not be true, but there were several people that were feeding us that information too. So we know the two of them are not exactly BFFs right now, and that you may see some of the distance. But Bass has suggested, look, we're in the middle of a crisis right now. We got to work together on this. But based off of where she's seated, it's hard to imagine that Crowley's getting a speaking position. But hey, she's in the room. Governor Newsom is not, who's the governor of the state, right? He didn't even get an invitation to be in there. So at least Kristen Crowley gets a seat at the table, even if it's a pretty far away one.
I'm looking at this list of people, and there's a name, Rick Grinnell, Presidential Envoy of Special Missions. Yeah, there's the president right there. That was Rick Grinnell.
Yeah. So Rick Grinnell is who's seated next to President Trump. I thought that might be him. Rick Grinnell is from Southern California, lives in Palm Desert, had been working with him in the first administration as a member of his cabinet, and that is who is, I guess, sitting next to the president. And you see there, number 47. Of course, the president now, the 47th president, the 45th president. Let's listen in.
Meeting with the head of the LAFD and the LAPD, now making his way to Mayor Karen Bass there. And as you mentioned there, Rick Grinnell, Presidential Envoy. The president makes his way around the room there, shaking hands with the members of Congress invited to this roundtable. They're running about 45 minutes late. They were supposed to start around 4:05. It is a short visit here in Southern California. The president then is going to make his way to Las Vegas, being there with Congressman Brad Sherman, a Democrat. Part of his territory is there in the Palisades. And there you have the president making sure to say pretty much hello to everybody in the room, even members of the military there in the back. And Ted Lieu, as Alex had mentioned, a Democrat who's been critical. Supervisor Catherine Barger there in the yellow jacket as well. So there you have quite a picture. The president's first visit as president during his second term after the inauguration. And it is to disaster zones here in the United States. North Carolina first, hit by a hurricane, and then here in Southern California, our wildfires. Again, He's wearing that hat, Make America Great Again. The First Lady wearing a plain black hat. Of course, her fashion is always a statement that gets picked up. Pro and con, people have weighed in on what she has worn to different locations. But there you have them ready to meet finally with lawmakers there. We've been waiting. We've seen this picture with those empty chairs. They're waiting for them to finish their tour, where it was first an aerial tour by helicopter Marine One, and then actually meeting with residents affected by the wildfires. Let's go ahead and take a listen in here as the president addresses the roundtable.
This is an honor to be with you. Unfortunately, it's a very sad period, but what makes you feel good is I met so many of the homeowners, and every one of them, a lot of them, and every one of them said to me they want to rebuild. I said, will you go elsewhere? No, 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 no. It wasn't even like a question. They love the area. They love the people. It's like a family. It's incredible, actually, when you see some things like that. We just left North Carolina, and we had just a similar type of disaster. It was water instead of fire, but boy, that water did damage like I've never seen before. And then you come here and you see this. But the people are so amazing, and your fire department was so beautiful. Every one of them is in perfect physical shape. I said, what do you guys do? They have very high standards, I could tell you. And we took pictures with all of them, but very nicely they gave us a little helmet. And I said, you wear this, huh? Is this real? And they said, yeah. I said, it's awfully heavy. You have to be very strong to wear that. But that's the original, right? So it's pretty good. But I just want to thank everybody. We're going to be with you. Your governor met us at the plane, and we had a good talk, very, very positive talk. We have to work together to get this really worked out. I don't think you can realize how rough it is, how devastating it is until you see it. I didn't realize. I mean, I saw a lot of bad things on television, but the extent of it, the size of it, we flew over it in a helicopter. We flew to a few of the areas, and it is devastation. It's incredible. It's really an incineration. Even some of the chimneys came down, okay? When you have the chimneys come down, you know that's pretty hot stuff, and a lot of them were down. That was a bad sign, too. But I just want to commiserate, and we're going to celebrate. We'll be back to celebrate one day soon, I hope soon. The federal government standing behind you, 100%. The First Lady and I are in California to express a great love for the people of California. I've had great support always in California. We did very well recently, as you know, relatively speaking, at least I can say. And it's been amazing. I have property in California, not too far away, actually, right up the road in Palos Verdes, a big property. And I've always loved it. I've always loved being here. But we have to grieve for the 28 Californians who have tragically perished. And sadly, you're going to be finding more. And that's going to be very sad, because I know people are missing. And when you look at that kind of incineration, you know what's going to happen. You're going to find some more. But with all that we've gone through, I watched your firefighters, and they were really fighting at a big disadvantage. I got to know a lot of them just now, and they're incredible people. They were so happy. They were saying, congratulations, sir. You know, they're thinking about country maybe even before this location that they all love. But I'm pleased to be joined by many of the great California leaders, both Democrat and Republican. And it's an honor to meet some of you I didn't know, but I know every one of you by name. LA County Supervisor Catherine Barger. Thank you, Catherine, very much. Mayor Karen Bass. Thank you, Karen. It's nice to meet you. Representatives Jay Obernolte. Where's Jay? Jay, hi, Jay. It's been a tough period, Jay, right? Vince Fong, Kevin Kiley, Vince and Kevin, hi. Hi, Vince. A man I know very well. I know him too well, actually. And I say that actually with love, because he's actually been a great congressman for a long time, and he's a great leader, and he loves the area as much as anybody, right, Daryl? So Daryl, I say, young Kim, congratulations on an excellent career. I appreciate it. Another one I know pretty well is, to put it mildly, is Tom McClintock. And he's been with us for a long time. We have some interesting things going on in Washington. And it's an honor that you guys are here. Thank you, Daryl, very much, Tom. George Whitesides. Good, George. It's a great name, too, by the way. Brad Sherman. Oh, I know Brad well. I know Brad, but that's all right. We're on the same side of this one. I know that. We'll work together, Brad, very well. A lot of respect. And Presidential Envoy Rick Grinnell, who's done a fantastic job for me over the years. He was ambassador to Germany, and he was fantastic. So 2.5 weeks ago, over 100-mile-an-hour winds transformed the Palisades fire and other areas, too, into absolute infernos of death and destruction. And this is already the most expensive natural disaster, they say, in American history. That's pretty amazing. The numbers are going to be staggering. Most importantly, we have to get it built, and we have to hopefully find as few people as possible. We have already too many, 28 at least, they say. We're going to work very hard with the mayor, the governor, the supervisor, and everybody, and get the resources behind you. We have some amazing people, and we have some amazing fighters for things like this. I also had the concept of getting some of the best developers in the country. I've had so many calls from developers, and they want to come in. They don't want anything. They just want to come in and help, and they really know how to get things done and get things built. I would ask that the local officials, because we're going to essentially waive all federal permits. We're going to have you go very quickly, because a federal permit can take 10 years. We're not going to do that. We don't want to take 10 days. I would. So we're declaring this a national emergency. By doing that, I can give you immediate permits. I'd ask that the local permitting process be the same. Some of the people were saying they're going to be forced to wait 18 months for their permits, and I don't think you're going to do that. I can't imagine that. So they are literally in a position right now they'd like to start tonight, and they'll clean their site, they'll do everything. They just want to start, and they were very concerned with the 18 months, so I'm sure you can get it down to, I would say, not even 18 days. They are ready, Mayor, they are ready to start. I met so many of them. The fire took place. It's nice and cool there now, and they want to start taking the debris. They want to take the debris. They want to do everything. They'll get rid of everything. They're going to do it by their own hand. And you're going to see some amazing things happen. So we're waiving the federal permits. Either waive them or give them to you so rapidly it's going to be essentially the same thing, but we're going to try and just waive them, and we'll rely on the local. But the local, I hope, is going to do the same exact thing. They're literally ready to start right away tonight. So if you could do almost the same thing or the same thing would be great. For a building permit, you're going to have to, check things out a little bit. A lot of them, every single one of them said they're going to rebuild. I didn't have one person say they're selling or they're leaving or they're disgusted. They love their community, and it's incredible. We even had one from your neck of the woods, right? Yeah. Do you want to stand up? It was so nice the way she greeted my wife in a very different language, right? And it was very nice to see. And you're staying, and you're going to rebuild, and everything else. Yeah, everybody. So it's really great. So I'm signing an executive order to open up the pumps and valves in the north. We want to get that water pouring down here as quickly as possible and let hundreds of millions of gallons of water flow down into Southern California. And that'll be a big benefit to you. If you don't want it, you're going to tell me, but I can't imagine it. I tell you who does like it is the fire department. When I said that, they were very happy with that. They didn't mind hearing that. But we have a lot of water that is available, and I hope you can work that out among yourselves. But I think this will show that we have to have that water. We have to have that water. You're talking about unlimited water coming up from the Pacific Northwest, even coming up from parts of Canada. And it pours down naturally. It has for a million years. For a million years, it pours down. You'll never run out. You'll never have shortages, and you won't have things like this. And when you do, you'll have a lot of water to put it out. So I'm going to ask that you figure that out. But I really strongly recommended this 7 years ago, and I think I'm going to just do it. If you have big problems, you're going to let me know, but I just can't even imagine it. But we're also surging federal resources and assistance to the state, and California must adopt the common sense policies to prevent fires, and we all know that. You know, we were talking 7 or 8 years ago, I was talking to people from Austria, people from Finland, people that live in forests. And one of the gentlemen, one of the top great leaders of Austria said, we don't have forest fires, and we have trees that are actually far more flammable than they have in California, but they literally rake their forest. They take down, if a tree comes down, they take it down. They say you have 18 months. After that, it's like a matchstick. And I know environmentally, some environmental groups like the trees to just melt into the ground, but when they do melt into the ground, they become an inferno. So I think you're going to have to change your ways in terms of that. You have 30 years of leaves, and those leaves are dry as a bone, and they burn. You know, interestingly, because I was at Paradise, who's the general, right? A long time ago, I was at Paradise. What a beautiful paradise it was. And how is it doing, by the way? Are they rebuilding, right? Remember when he said, you were up here, President. I went there. I never saw anything like it. But you know what amazed me? I'll never forget it. The trees were okay, because the trees are loaded with water. They sucked that water out of the ground. And this was an inferno, just like, I would say no different than this, and it was also the wind that caused a lot of problem. I mean, you had tremendous winds that there's not a lot you're going to do with. You had up to 100-mile-an-hour winds. It's unheard of. But when I was in Paradise, I noticed that the trees, they were dark on the bottom, but they were absolutely living, and they lived because they're soaking wet. But the trees that were on the ground, within 12 to 18 months. They say 18 months at a maximum, you have to cut them up, take them away because they're matchsticks. But we saw that. You saw that with me. I commented at the time. I said, look at this. The house is burned down and the tree is standing, and it's, other than being a little different color on the bottom, and it went through an inferno. It's amazing. It's soaking wet. So I think they have to do it. It's called management of the floor. And when the gentleman from Austria and also Finland and other countries, they said we manage the forest floor very, very carefully, and we don't have forest fires. You know, they just don't have them. So I'm sure you're going to do the same thing. So there can be no golden age without the Golden State. It's a great state. It's a fantastic place, and we're going to have a big celebration soon. We're going to come back, and we'll come back as much as you need, and we're going to turn it around, and we're going to open the coffers. You know, America wants us to be taken care of. This was a horrible thing to watch, and the way it just kept going and going, and then they'd find another area. It was like genius.
Those watching our coverage of the Fox 11 News at 4, we're going to end here now and send you to Big Ten basketball right here on Fox 11. You can continue to watch special edition of our news at 5, Fox 11 Plus, which is channel 13, and Fox Local. Hello there, I'm Christine Devine. We welcome you to a special edition of the Fox 11 News at 5 right here on Fox 11 Plus. You're watching President Donald Trump here in Southern California addressing a roundtable of lawmakers as he talks about the Palisades and Altadena fires. Let's go ahead and listen in. He has toured the Palisades fire zone.
And so you have that coming. And then we have the 250 years coming up, which is going to be a great celebration. But I'll never forget when I got the Olympics, and then I was president when I got them. And I said, oh boy, it's too bad I won't be president. Who knew this was going to happen, right? I said, I won't be president because it would have been the 4 years. And in fact, I'd be retired by 4 days right now, I guess, right? So anyway, so I got him, and at least I'll be able to celebrate the Olympics, the World Cup, and the 250 years is going to be a very big deal. So we have the 3 biggest there are, and it was an honor to get. If you have any questions, please let me know. And if you have a statement to make, I'd love to have politically, if you'd like to make a statement. Brad, go ahead.
Mr. President?
Okay, I'll do
Mr. President, thank you for coming
Thank you, Brett.
to the 32nd Congressional District and
Thank you.
making feel. Most people don't have adequate insurance because they couldn't get it. So one company dropped 1,600 policies just in the last 6 months. We've got 16 times as much property damage here as from Hawaii. And I'm hoping that we get at least 16 times the federal appropriation for the CDBG program that helps people rebuild. And I know you've talked about policies of California that you're not a fan of, but I've been in Congress for 28 years. I really disagree with Louisiana on their abortion policy. I disagree with them on their campaign finance policy. I disagree with North Dakota on their gun policy. And I would never turn to somebody from Louisiana and say, you keep living on your cousin's couch, because we're not going to help you rebuild until Louisiana agrees with me on a woman's right to choose. So I'm hoping that we can get these funds and that we don't punish individuals for the policies of their state. You can disagree with them, and I think you've got some ideas. I look forward to us listening. Also on tariffs, I often agree with you on tariffs. But how about no tariffs on building materials for the next 3 years?
We'll take a look at that, actually.
Mr. President.
Mayor, please.
Yes. First of all, let me just take the opportunity to officially welcome you to Los Angeles. Really appreciate you coming, and especially you come just a few days after your inauguration. So I want you to know that your presence here is very much appreciated. Let me also say that I know you had an opportunity to see the devastation. You've seen the extreme loss, the grief that people are going through here. And we are 100% committed to getting this neighborhood rebuilt again. You mentioned a couple of things in terms of us expediting. So I signed executive directives right away so that we could cut the red tape. We could get people back building as fast as possible. And we're going to continue doing that.
Mayor, the one thing is they are saying they will not be allowed to start for 18 months.
No. That will not be the case.
Okay, I just hope you're right.
You can hold me to it.
There's 4 groups said that.
No.
That would be they should be able to do it. They should be able to start tonight.
That will not be the case. You know, first we have to take care to make sure that there's not getting rid of the hazardous waste, cleaning things up so that people can start right away. And just like you said, if somebody had their house was destroyed and they're going to rebuild essentially the same, maybe a little bit longer, a little bit higher, they really shouldn't have to go through much of a process. So I want you to know that we are expediting that. We absolutely need your help. We need the federal help.
You've got it. I told you. You will have no permit problem. There will be 0 delay. And as far as I'm concerned, you already have the permits.
And the resources.
I am more worried because I met at least 8 groups of homeowners, and I'm much more worried about the fact that they said it's 18 months exactly, and they were devastated. They want to start now. They want to start removing things. They're not allowed to do it now. And you mentioned hazardous waste. Well, the hazardous waste, what's hazardous waste? I mean, you're going to have to define that. We're going to go through a whole series of questions on determining what's hazardous.
Nope.
I just think you have to allow the people to go on their site and start the process tonight.
And we will.
Okay, good.
You can come back and check.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I'm Congressmember Judy Chu, and I represent the areas of Altadena and Pasadena.
Yes.
That's the Eaton fire, and there is a world of hurt there. I know that you've gone to the Palisades and you've seen the devastation, but it's apocalyptic in Altadena, and thank goodness I have a partner with Supervisor Catherine Barger in working to help people get back to normal and to rebuild. But right now they have nothing. And there have been 9,500 structures burned. Most of the deaths have occurred in our area with the Eaton fire. And thousands of people are without homes. And these are working people. These are working class people. They are people like Dr. Jackie Jacobs, who was an educator all her life and then finally became the first black administrator of her educational institution, Pasadena City College, and then retired, now 88 years old, and then her home of 30 years burned in Altadena.
Yeah.
She has nothing. She left with only the clothes on her back. She has nothing. And so they need this help. And I just want to make sure that you remember the people in Altadena and Pasadena, and that you can come there and see how terrible the devastation has been there so that they can get the help that they need.
Just remember one thing, and I like the way you express yourself beautifully, actually, but I've only been here 3 days, and I'll do a great job. But we had another president, and this took place during the life of another president, not me. But I'm going to be the president that's going to help you fix it, because he would not have been able to help you fix it, okay? So we'll take care of it. We'll take care of it, and we'll work closely. We'll work closely, and I know your community was really devastated, incredibly, so we understand that. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I'm just going to follow up. Supervisor
Yes, please, go ahead.
And I also represent Altadena, and what I tell people is, people of Altadena are the exact people you talked to when you were running. You've got individuals from every walk of life, and it is actually at one time was the only place African Americans could purchase homes. It was redlined. And so you've got a lot of generational wealth there. And one of the commitments I've made, and we've had meetings with some of you people in HUD that you've got there now, to work with them and work with your administration to see how we can help. And I've been pleasantly surprised. I know on HUD we've got some asks that we are going to be working with you on. But more importantly, I just really want to emphasize what Congresswoman Chu said, and that is that these are individuals who are feeling forgotten. And what I tell them is, and when we invited you out, I told, when I went to the AME church, this president was talking to you when he was running. You understand the difficulty in making ends meet. You understand the high cost of living. And now their biggest fear is that that's going to impact their ability to rebuild. And I have made them this commitment, because this is my last term, that for the next 4 years, you talk about 18 months, I've told our county staff that if you're going to get in the way, then get another job. Because we are an all hands on deck. And quite frankly, if the bureaucracy can't get out of the way, we'll just roll over it. And we've said that, and we've made it clear. The governor's waived CEQA, which I feel should be completely reformed, if not eliminated. And if it's being eliminated for this...
How are they doing with CEQA?
How are they doing?
How is it? What's been the attitude of the people running that whole situation?
It adds sometimes years on to an application.
Can't do it. Can't.
No, and the governor's
and Coastal Commission also.
He waived that.
We're going to have to override the Coastal Commission, because I've dealt with the Coastal Commission for a long time, and they are considered the most difficult in the entire country. And we cannot have them play their games and wait 10 years to give somebody a permit. In fact, I'm going to override the Coastal Commission. I'm not going to let them get away with their antics.
Well,
okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I just want to thank you for your leadership on California water policy. You made it a priority from day one. For those of us in the Central Valley in Northern California, we have catastrophic wildfires as well. California is a wildfire-prone area, so ensuring reliable stable water supplies is critical. And so your leadership, your executive order, moving more water, maximizing flows throughout the state of California, building more water storage, more conveyance, coordinating the...
It would have a great impact on, I know your area very well. It would have an unbelievable impact on your area.
Absolutely. We just want to thank you for making it a priority.
You know, even beyond the fire stuff, the farms. I was driving up with congressmen a few years ago because they were complaining they had no water. And I was driving up, and you'll see all of this incredible land, but it's absolutely bone dry. And then you'll see little green patches, and the green patches are so beautiful. You know, they have that land, they say it's as good as Iowa farmland, but it has no water. And it's artificial, has no water. They send the water out into the Pacific Ocean. And when we let that water come through your valleys and down to Los Angeles and everything, you're going to have a different place. It's going to be a whole different place. Yep. And you guys have to get together and say, gee, we want it. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. So at least you said that, and I appreciate it. Because your farmers will be able to, instead of having 1 acre out of 100, which is all they have, they'll be able to have 100 acres out of 100. And it's among the best. They say it's the best farmland just about in the country, as good as any place there is. So, but you can't, it's no good without water. So that's beyond the fire stuff. But today we're talking about fire, but it's good for everything. So I hope you can lead a group. And Darrell, if you can lead a group, I know how you feel. And, you know, support what I'm doing, because what I'm doing, I guess, is controversial. I don't know what's controversial about sending millions and millions of gallons of beautiful fresh water from the Pacific Northwest and further up than even that into an area that's bone dry. We have to, you know, I have a house in Beverly Hills, and you get notices every once in a while. They want you to go down to 38 gallons per person or something, per house, per person. I say, you mean you can only have, 38 gallons sounds like a lot. It's not a lot. And they want to do that every once in a while, and you just think it's ridiculous when you have like just about as much water as anybody in the country, and we shouldn't be in a position where you have tumbleweed that's dry as a bone, that even tumbleweed can be nice and green and rich and loaded up with water, and it's not going to burn. You don't even have to remove it. It's not going to burn, but it's just dry. So I hope you can all get together and say, I'm so happy with the water that's going to be flowing down, because I just don't see anything. They talk about the Delta smelt, which is a fish that's this big, but it is really not, doesn't have to be protected because it's in other areas. It's in numerous other areas. So it doesn't have to be protected. The people of California have to be protected.
Mr. President. Mr. President, could I just speak for a moment?
Kevin Kiley, California.
Yes.
First of all, you're absolutely right about the Coastal Commission. I've introduced legislation to rein them in. We've been talking with Rick about this.
They're out of control.
Absolutely out of control. It's insane the things they've been getting away with.
I think they thrive on it, actually, if you want to know the truth. It's so ridiculous.
That's right. They even tried to stop SpaceX from launching rockets. It's just
That's true.
But you mentioned your predecessor and how he didn't fix the situation, which is absolutely right. Not only that, during the Calder fire, which was a few years ago, which was in my district, 600 people lost their homes in a town called Grizzly Flat. He came and he promised that he would help them out, but he broke that promise many times. He never delivered them the individual assistance they were asking for. So this has underscored for me the importance of helping the victims, making sure in this situation, in every fire, we get money to the victims, and we make sure that, that nothing stands in the way of that. But I just want to thank you for your focus on bringing sanity to California, water and fire policy. There's no place that needs a revolution in common sense quite like California.
You have so much water. Use it and be happy about it.
Mr. President,
be happy.
Mr. President, my name is Joel Pollack, and I am a journalist with Breitbart News, but I happen to live in the Pacific Palisades, as do other colleagues. One colleague, John Kahn, wrote the song Fighter, which you played at your campaign rallies. He lost his house and the studio he wrote that song in. We were lucky because I was able to fight the fire on my fence. But when I got to my house, there was no water in the pipes. So I got inside and I picked up the flower vases, because I give my wife flowers every week, and there was water there, and we started with that. Then I found my son's bucket of baseballs, and I dumped the baseballs on the ground, and I used the bucket. but there was still no water except for the water in the gutter coming from the burnt homes uphill. So I went to and fro to my gutter and my fence with my bucket. 2 guys showed up in a truck, 2 neighbors. We found 2 more buckets, bucket after bucket after bucket. Many of my neighbors, including some here, tried to fight the fires. They couldn't. We were lucky our house was saved. But we should not have to rely on buckets to put out a fire.
That's right.
You can't stop an 80-mile-per-hour wind or 100-mile-per-hour wind, but there were many things that went wrong here that are basic and small. We did not have traffic police to guide the evacuation, so there was gridlock on Sunset. They've removed the vehicles now, but there were dozens of vehicles that were abandoned by drivers who fled for their lives because there were no traffic cops available. The fire department wasn't pre-deployed, even though there was an extreme wind event coming. And many of my neighbors lost their fire insurance in the days before the blaze. So I asked my neighbors what would they want to know if I could ask the president a question, and the number one thing was insurance. Can you work with the insurance companies to get people back to where they were before they lost the coverage because of California's regulations? And can you make California change its rules so that when we build again, we can get fire insurance and we don't have to worry? And there's one other point I want to make. I really appreciate my congressman advocating for money. We need the money from the federal government. But I also understand Americans who are tired of spending money on California and disasters happen, and the California government passes $50 million to oppose your policies. So they have $50 million for that, but not for moving people into rental homes or helping people relocate or rebuild. I would like to ask you to follow the 9/11 Commission precedent and appoint a special master to watch the money, to make sure that every federal dollar that gets spent here is spent on fire relief and rebuilding and not on everything else.
Good idea. Here's a good one right over here. I don't know if you, do we all like
He's
Rick?
very busy.
He was ambassador to Germany. He was fantastic. Angela Merkel's happiest day ever in her history, and she had a long history, was the day I removed him from there and put him in charge of a very high level of intelligence and intelligent people, but they were not intelligent enough to fool him. But Rick Grinnell has been fantastic, and he lives here, and I don't know if you want to either think about it or recommend some people or get together and recommend some people as a group, which is fine. But Rick would be somebody that I would certainly consider. And Breitbart is fantastic, by the way. Congratulations on that. And I was so impressed with the firefighters I met before. And they said that, you know, I asked them how many of the pumps, how many of the hydrants were working. And it was a, you know, large percentage of them were not working at all. They had no water. And the ones that did have water didn't have a lot of pressure. And one of the things that was missing, many of you have sprinklers over your living room and your bathroom and your kitchen. I mean, if those sprinklers worked with some pressure, you would have had a much different outcome. So we're going to work on that. I think in terms of that, Rick Grinnell would be good, or Rick, you'll head up a group of people that would recommend a few people to me, maybe a commission, set up a commission. I like it because we're talking about a lot of money. The other one is Kelly Loeffler is now the head of small business, and small business is big business. It's actually one of the biggest banks in the world. We call it the Small Business Administration, and she's a cabinet member, full cabinet member. She's fantastic. Her husband is the head of the New York Stock Exchange, so they know something about money, and other exchanges actually. Fantastic people. And she wants to come here almost immediately after she gets approved. She wants to come here and open up small business to the area, because they have a lot of money. I always say the small business is actually a very big business when you add it all up. And she's going to come here, and it's a very important thing. I want to thank also the First Lady, because she wanted to come here. She wanted to be here. She has so many friends, and she also wanted to see North Carolina, because that was another disaster that was so bad, so different, but so bad. And she just wanted to go there. We said we're going to stop at one, and then we're going to the other. in many respects, it was a depressing day, but in many respects, it was a beautiful day because the spirit is so incredible. North Carolina and here, very, very similar situation. Different, so different and yet so similar, actually. And so I just thought it was very nice. You wanted to be here, and we appreciate that. Please. Jay.
Sitting here now, and
is that local?
Yeah.
You got to do. You got it.
So when we're sitting here now, and Mayor,
I don't want to be the only one to give you permits like in one day, and then I find out that the cities, the towns, and the state is not going to give you permits and you know the problem with permits, it only takes one. Yeah. You might need 7 different permits. You shouldn't have any at this point. You should just let them build. And you know you're only as good as the weakest one. So. If you have one that's going to hold you up, but the others are going to give it to you in 24 hours, it's not going to help you very much. So they have to work on that.
We were told last night 18 months. So if that's not the answer, Mayor Bass, what is the answer? Because that's what we were all told last night.
Well, and let me just tell you that we are going to do everything we can, slashing regulations, expediting everything so that people can begin the process right away. You know, we have the Disaster Recovery Center on Pico and Westwood. We have building and safety there. People are already contacting the local agencies. We're bringing our city departments together so that people don't get caught in the loop of going from one room to the next. We want them all to be in the same room so that you can get busy rebuilding ASAP. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And we will clear the lots, absolutely, in the city and in the county. We are working together. Both levels of government are working in unity.
That'd be 18 months. Is it not 18 months? Is it like that's the answer that we got, and that's what we're all hanging on.
Yes.
So if you're telling us now faster, is it 6 months? Is it, I mean, all of our lives, rents, all this stuff is weighing on this.
6 months is no good.
And the number one thing that we are going to do immediately, and you will see this happen, is to clear out the debris. And you know we're concerned right now over the weekend because of the potential rain, but we are going to move as fast as we can, but we want you to be safe, and we want you to be back in your homes immediately.
But the people are willing to clean out their own debris. It doesn't cost a lot.
Yes, and they can.
You should let them do it because by the time you hire contractors, it's going to be 2 years.
If a family...
The people are willing to get a dumpster and do it themselves and clean it out.
And they can.
There's not that much left. It's all incinerated.
That's right.
And, you know, it's just going to take a long time if you do. You can do some of it, but a lot of these people, I know that guy right there that's talking. I know my people. You'll be on that thing tonight, throwing the stuff away, and your site it'll look perfect within 24 hours, and that's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to wait around for 7 months till the city hires some demolition contract that's going to charge him $25,000 to do his lot.
Yeah.
I think you have emergency powers just like I do, and I'm exercising my emergency powers. You have to exercise them also.
I did exercise them.
Because I looked, I mean, you have a very powerful emergency power, and you can do everything within 24 hours.
Yes. And if individuals want to clear out their property, they can. Well, yes, but you know that you will be able to go back soon.
Mr. President.
We think within a week.
That's a long time, a week. I'll be honest. To me, everyone's standing in front of their house. They want to go to work, and they're not allowed to do it.
And the most important thing is for people
to
be safe.
They're safe. They're safe. You know what? They're not safe. They're not safe now. They're going to be much safer. A week is actually a long time, the way I look at it. I watched hundreds of people standing in front of their lots, and they're not allowed to go in. It's all burned. It's gone. It's done. Nothing's going to happen to it. It's not going to burn anymore. There's nothing to burn. There's almost nothing to burn. And they want to go in. The people are all over the place. They're standing, and I say, why aren't you going in? We're trying to get a permit. And the permit's going to take them, everybody said 18 months. You said 18 months. You said 18 months.
That was last night.
And that was last night.
On that.
We are blocked from entering our street.
Right.
We can't even. This is our first time we saw our house was yesterday.
Mr. President, we're going to be together next week, and during the interim, many of us are involved in, and Tom McClintock, who you know has been an expert on this for years.
That's right.
We are going to be putting conditions on the money that do two things. Require that it be done timely and affordable, and then secondly, that we protect those who will come afterwards. As we speak, there are 6,000 acres burning in my district on the Mexican border. There will be more fires until we include in any disaster relief items which will prevent it or at least mitigate it from happening again. So you're going to see us proposing both of those.
Like water. Little things like water. You know, the party of common sense. See, we're the party of common sense. You're not, in all fairness.
Yes, sir.
We like water to put out fires. It's really quite efficient. All right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I'm Jay Obernolte. My district is just a bit east of here.
Yep.
And you were talking about the need to better manage our forests and our wildlands to prevent this from happening again. And you were so right about that. Just last year, a couple months ago in October, they put out a fire. The line fire in my district was over twice as big as the Palisades fire. And they put it out less than a mile from my house in an area where we had done thinning, and they stopped the fire, Mr. President, on a fire break that we had built a couple of years ago.
That's right.
We have an area just on the other side of my community that hasn't been thinned in decades because it's being held up by a lawsuit from an environmental group that says we're going to reduce habitat. Mr. President, we need to, in addition to getting resources and boots on the ground to do this treatment, we need to reform our legal system to prevent these lawsuits from tying up these projects for years and years and years. And not to say that the merit shouldn't be heard, but we need to hear them and we need to move on, resolve them.
Is this a state group? State or federal group?
This is a local group, actually, Mr. President, but they have help from the state.
They use the environment to make themselves feel good, and they're destroying our country. And you've got to, at some point, you've got to put your foot down. I know exactly what you're talking. You have local and state groups, and you have federal groups, too. And you got to fight them the right way, because you'll never, even if the mayor gives, you're going to have a local group come in and sue. You're not allowed to go on your property. They're going to talk about asbestos and every other thing. They want to go on their property, and they want to clean out their property. And you cannot let anything get in their way. And you'll have this place built up quickly, beautiful. It'll be more beautiful than before. And I would do one other thing. I'd give them a 10%, 15% bonus on their house, because they went through hell, and they should be allowed to build a little bit, give them a little bit lot line bonus, give them a bonus on size, maybe a little bonus on height. They went through hell. You know, some of them had houses where they were restricted. They have to have an 8-foot ceiling. You let them have a 10-foot ceiling. Let them build a nice house, a nicer house than they had before. But I would give them a 10 or a 15% bonus on their plans. And I think it would be very well received, because they'll be able to build a little bit nicer house. Do you like that idea, by the way? They deserve it. Because you know what? It's not their fault that this fire took place. This fire took place, could have been stopped. It's not their fault. It's not the homeowner's fault. Yeah. And I think they should be entitled to a bonus on their house. Okay.
Mr. President.
Sir, go ahead. Thank you. Some good news from Paradise. We stood together there 6 years ago, along with the governor.
That was so terrible.
That 3,400 homes have been rebuilt out of the 18,000 lost. And there's 400 more in the wings. And so FEMA was very helpful. Now my colleague who has Altadena here, probably a very similar situation. Clearing the lots, they're probably going to have to clear about a foot worth of soil underneath those foundations to get the toxicity out. So they'll need a lot of help. Those are working class folks in Altadena.
And we did a good job with you people.
And FEMA was extremely helpful.
Yep.
30,000.
That was the old days when FEMA was good. FEMA's no good anymore.
Yeah.
That was when we ran it. FEMA was very good, but now FEMA's not good.
We got to get them on track. But on the water, thanks so much for your strong efforts on that. Right now, Lake Shasta, which is in my district, is dumping more water than what is coming in. So is Folsom Lake. And those are federal projects that should be building up because we're latter January here. And you can't count on the rain and the snow coming every year. And so if we don't fill those projects, then my colleague in San Joaquin Valley isn't going to get his water for his farmers. Well, it might be all right up in the north. They aren't going to get it. And then the water needs to go through aqueduct for Southern Cal to refill maybe the Santa Ynez Reservoir that was empty during this.
You know, you don't even need reservoirs. With the water coming down, you don't need the reservoir. You have so much water, you don't need it. You only have reservoirs because you're trying to hold water. But you have natural water coming down along the coast. It's for 1 million years it's been coming. You know that, right?
Yeah.
In addition to that, you have a lot of half pipe. In other words, you have the half pipe that's built, and it hasn't been used. You see, it's bone dry. No water's been in that half pipe for years and years. It was closed up years ago.
Had the reservoir,
it's already there. Yeah.
Had the reservoir above Palisades been full, they wouldn't have run out of water in a few hours. It would have gone for at least a few days with 40 acre feet out of 600,000.
That reservoir's been empty for a long time.
Yep.
It shouldn't have been empty. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, please.
Mr. President, my name is Tracy Park. I represent the people of the Pacific Palisades on the LA City Council. I wanted to thank you for your loyal support to our military, our police officers, and especially our firefighters.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
My top priority going forward is to get these men and women home as soon as possible and open up the pathway to begin their rebuilding process. It was the Army Corps of Engineers who announced last night that it would be 18 months. I am fully committed to doing my part on the ground with our state agencies and our city and our county partners to speed this up.
Good.
I just ask for your ongoing partnership with FEMA and the EPA and our other federal agencies to make sure that we have a commitment across all layers of government to get these people back home. Thank you, sir.
I do. Thank you very much. It's well said. I do have to say FEMA is a big disappointment. We had it working well. We had great people, but FEMA's not good anymore. What FEMA did in North Carolina, you know, they still haven't even gone to certain areas. They don't know what they're doing. And I say, you don't need FEMA. You need a good state government. And when you have a problem in Los Angeles, or when you have a problem even in the state of California, you have your own, essentially FEMA. You fix it yourself. You don't have somebody coming in from a state where they have no idea, like Florida. They come in from hurricanes. They have people staying in Alaska, and now they see, oh, this is very nice. But by the time they get familiar with it, they don't know anything. The FEMA is a very expensive, in my opinion, mostly failed situation. We had great people. We did some great jobs, but each state should take care of their problem and get money from the federal government. It would be so much better, so much more efficient. So we're looking at that because we have had, and you're going to have problems with FEMA too. You've already had problems with FEMA. FEMA doesn't even show up. It takes weeks before they even show up. And what happens is the state then relies on FEMA, and nobody does anything because FEMA doesn't show up. So it's not a good situation. So we'll make some recommendations on that. But you have to push like hell to get the permits, because I'm just hearing things that I don't like to hear. I think you're not going to get your permits as fast as people are saying. We have to get them. And Mayor, if I can help you at all in that regard, you'll let me know. But you're going to have all your federal permits. That's going to be the easy part, which, by the way, is by far the hardest part. Do you know who controls your water is Department of Commerce, and I already have that approval. And that's usually a very long process. But that's the hard part was the federal, but we already have that done. So anything I can do, please let me know. Please go ahead.
Rec center, the libraries, all rebuilt. And whatever federal support and whatever support we can get from you, working with the local.
You lost all your schools.
We lost all our schools.
You lost your 4 schools?
4 schools, rec center, sports fields, library, and as you saw, this is an incredible community of families And our kids, that's what they did all day, was go to school, go to the rec center, go to the library. Like, we don't have any of that. So we could all rebuild our homes, which is great, but if none of that infrastructure is here, then it's not the same community. So we need those
Were they
areas.
completely burned down, the schools?
Yeah.
Wow. All of them? All of them?
Pretty much all of them, yeah. Palisades Elementary, which a number of our kids all go to, I mean, the place is basically destroyed. So we can't wait 5 years for that to be rebuilt, because we can't live there if there's no schools. So that's an area where we would love your help and support. I love the idea of having some, local council that can use those federal dollars, implement them quickly into rebuilding those areas.
Well, I'm going to ask Rick to sit, I think, right from this table. You might put a couple of the fire guys back there on that I just met, okay? Because they're really good. But get a group and figure out how we can do the processing faster.
Mr. President, if I can just defend FEMA a little bit.
Yeah.
They brought thousands of people in. I don't know how they're doing in other states. They're doing a good job for us here. They've got a huge center that's open from 9 in the morning till 8 at night. But also, when you have a disaster this size, you need to be able to deploy thousands of people, which they've been able to do. Now, California, if we did it on our own, maybe we'd have thousands of people.
You do.
But if Rhode Island has a Palisades disaster, are they then supposed to keep
How many people do you have in California? 36? How many million? How many million people do you have? You have 40 million people. You're not going to get a few thousand people? The problem with FEMA is they come from all over the country. They end up in arguments with your people from California because they want to do it a totally different way. And I can live either way, but you haven't gotten very much done with FEMA and all you have to do is look at North Carolina. It's one of the great disasters of all time.
And Mr. President, you can't have Rhode Island maintain a staff of thousands and thousands of people waiting to see if they have a disaster.
Do you know who came in and fixed North Carolina or the process? Other states, people from all over the country came. And you have the same thing. You have a lot of people from all over the country. Getting the people is not a problem. Getting the organization's a big problem. FEMA's incompetently run, and it costs about 3 times more than it should cost.
I'm hoping
we can spend money on schools instead of giving money to bureaucracy. It takes you so much longer.
Mr. President,
it takes you so much longer
FEMA for helping our people.
FEMA has a standard, Brad, and I'm a builder. I was a very good builder. FEMA has a standard that's so slow. They want permit on permit on permit, and then they want permits on top of that. If you use FEMA, you'll be here for a long time. What I'm saying is get the city, get the state to give you immediate 24-hour permits. These people are going to build their own homes. They're going to get them built fast. Yeah. How many of the people, could I ask you one question? How many of the people, what are people going to do for financing? What are people going to do? How many people can build a home, percentage-wise, like where they don't have to go out and get funds? Some people are just not going to be able to rebuild their home because they have a beautiful home, but they don't have cash, right? So what are people looking to do in that case? You're going to have a big percentage, I would assume, Brad, like that. What are they going to do? Go ahead.
Mr. President, without your help, they're only going to get $43,000 from the federal government, even if they have a half million dollar.
You did something, Brad, where every insurance company in the country left California. That's why you have no insurance, because you made it so impossible. People that think like you made it so impossible. And
Brad,
every
Mr.
insurance
President,
company.
I don't know what
I'll tell you this,
about my thinking.
I've never seen a state where almost nobody has insurance. And I said, what happened? And they said like 6 months ago they all left, and 2 years ago they had different quadrants, but they left. And you have very little insurance here. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
We had a lot of insurance companies pull out, but I have no idea.
And the insurance companies actually have been warning you. Now, I'm not a big fan of insurance companies, okay? They have their big drawbacks too, but the insurance company, I read the papers very well, and they've been warning California for a long time. They've also been saying, we want water. You don't have water. You're supposed to get fire insurance. And the insurance company goes, you don't have any water in your fire hydrants. So it's a tough situation. I'm not a big fan of insurance companies. I get that.
They're pulling out of Florida
Fred,
as
you
well.
lost your insurance company 6 months ago because the state wouldn't give them what they had to have.
Yeah, and Mr. President, I remember the...
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
I'm Ed Ring from the California Policy Center, and in the matter of prevention of fires, in the matter of the cost of rebuilding, both of which affect insurance rates, I think one, to support something one of the other participants said, a reform you might consider, and it could be an act of Congress, is that the losers in environmentalist lawsuits pays the legal fees. And I think that would be a big step in the right direction.
The losers of the lawsuit should pay all the fees.
Oh, you mean loser pays? I love that. Well, if you did loser pays, you could cut your courts in you could cut them down about 90%. Loser pays. You know what would also benefit? Medical. If you had loser pays for medical, your medical costs would go down by 50%. That's an interesting thing, you know, I bring that up, but you know the only problem? The strongest lobby in the world, you know what it is? The lawyer lobby. So when you go back to your local congressman, hello, congressman, how about going against the lawyers for a little while? No, loser pay is, you know, very good. In Europe, they use it in certain parts of Europe, and they have very little litigations, right? Yes, please.
Mr. President, I represent the 27th Congressional District, which is on the north side of the North San Fernando Valley through Santa Clarita and Lancaster and Palmdale. I just wanted to tell you a story of heroism. Yesterday, we had another big fire. We had several big fires across, and this fire was moving fast. It was moving 1,000 feet per minute. But what these heroes did, the firefighters and the sheriffs and the law enforcement officials, they mobilized 4,000 people within about 6 hours. They mobilized 20 air attack aircraft and helicopters, and they saved the city of Castaic. And so I just wanted to ask you to join us in recognizing those amazing heroes.
I love that.
I think the thing that we all, and I'm very encouraged by your words, we're all here to help the folks here, right?
That's right.
And your words about building quickly, building well, but building quickly is what I think we are all here to do. And I think if we can take that spirit out of today, it is really important that you and your wife are here. If we can take that spirit, we're going to help these people as quickly as possible, get them back on their feet, and recreate these amazing communities that we have here.
And you'll take the word spirit, such a great word, such an important word. You'll take their guts away. You'll take their spirit away if you don't give them the purpose. You're going to take their guts. They're going to say, oh, all of a sudden they'll start looking for houses, and your whole thing is going to blow up on you. These people want to get going. This place can go quickly, but you don't want to take their spirit away, and that will take their spirit away. So you're 100% right. Yes, sir. Thank you.
I love my home. My in-laws love their home. I want to make you aware of something that I know you know a thing or two about, which is interest rates. The banks, when the insurance company gives you the check on the name of the mortgage company and you, they offer you 2% interest on that money. The treasuries are 4%.
Right.
They're expanding their net interest margin on the back of fire victims. Could you please, just like you talked to the CEO of Bank of America.
Oh, you noticed that. Oh, look at this guy. He studies that. No, Bank of America, they're not nice. Sounds very nice. The Bank of America, they're not nice.
The banks to pay us Treasury for the money that the insurance sets aside.
Well, we're starting to we're doing numbers on banks, yeah. We're doing it. Is that Leonard Boxer next to you? Leonard? Huh? We have Leonard and we have, oh, there's Skip. I have them all here, huh? Look at Skip. I haven't seen you in a long time. He used to be a very good golfer. You still a good golfer? Huh? And he's a good guy, too. Hi, Skip. You got them all, huh? Got Leonard, Skip. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, I just wanted to say Paradise is coming back because of the help that you gave us. And we really want to thank you for that. And that's why we're here also, is because we want to help our
We did a good job with Paradise, didn't we? What a fire that was.
It was a terrible
we
fire.
had many people were found, and only the certain type of German Shepherd could even find it, right? You could not tell. The dog would go right up. There's the body. And the incineration was so horrible. So
was
horrible.
And when we see the same devastation.
So Paradise is going good, right?
It's going good. We're coming back. And
Yeah,
it's because
good.
of the help, and we want to help our brothers and sisters here in LA to come back too. And I know that's what you're going to do. And so we really appreciate that. But from Paradise to the Palisades, the problem is fuel. It's the fuel, the vegetation, the dry grasses, the chaparral. There's a tremendous amount of it, and we're not.
You got to remove it. You got to remove it, and you got to remove it, and you got to do the other things that we've said 10 times. I mean,
Right.
you got to remove it. You just can't have it. I see it even now. I saw the fire. We flew over it, and you got a lot of dry stuff. It's bone dry.
And the environmental.
And you know, I predicted this 7 years ago. I said, do it, get it done. And everybody laughed. They thought it was, I said, forest management. They thought it was such a funny term. Ha, 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 that's so funny. Now it's not funny anymore, you know? We were right.
It's number one cause of these fires. Number one cause.
You wouldn't have any fires.
Right. And if we just remove those environmental regulations, NEPA, CEQA at the state level, that get in the way of us doing those projects.
It's all a con job, you know that, right? It's all a big con
the
job.
town of Berry Creek in my district,
yeah.
CEQA stopped them from doing a fuel reduction project. They said 18 months. That's where 18 months comes from, because at least 18 months on a CEQA review. That community is no longer here today because of the North Complex fire. We didn't build that project. We need to make sure that never happens again. We have to stop those things from happening so we don't have.
Well, it will happen here
Palisades.
unless you're very strong as a group of people and demand that you have the right to go onto your property and start the process immediately, like tomorrow. How many people did I see on your street where they're standing in front of their lot? The house there's really not much demolition. It's incinerated, right? So it's not like a lot of stuff. It's not like you have 3 stories worth of concrete. It's all incinerated. And all of the people were standing there and they weren't allowed to even go onto their lot. You got to let them do. If you can do that, you're going to see this thing go like wildfire. And if you don't, you're going to have those lots for years because people are going to leave. They're going to, as much as you love your location and your place, and you're in the real estate business, as much as you love your location and your site, your housing sites, they're going to leave. They're going to leave. They're going to find other things. They're not going to put up with it. They have spirit now, but in a year from now, they won't have spirit if you don't let them go. So just harness it. Well, I think, look, I'm going to give you everything you want. I'm going to give you more than any president would have ever given you. If most presidents wouldn't be here, number one. They certainly wouldn't be here after 3 days. They would not be here. I can tell you that. And we're going to override all of permitting. The only thing you have to do is get your state people, which should be very easily, because that's literally so easy to do. And I know the mayor, and I know she's working very hard, but she's got very powerful emergency, it's called an emergency petition. And you can petition very quickly. And I just hope you can give them, because it's very rare that the federal government would be ahead of the state government, because the federal permits are much tougher. But you essentially already have your permits. You can just go and go wild. Brad, as soon as you can get those permits, whatever you can do, if you can put that genius of yours to work on getting a permit, you'll be doing much better than some of the other things you've said, okay? But we do appreciate you. So, Mayor, could I just leave you with that? It's a big permitting deal. We're going to be back, and I'm going to put Rick in charge of just representing me for a period of time until we figure out exactly who we want to do it, whether we want a commission or an individual. You know, if you have a good individual, if you have a really good individual, and they are rare, but if you have a really good individual, it's always better than a commission, because the commission gets bogged down a little bit, Darrell, right? So it's if you had the right individual. And I know we do. We have a lot of great individuals in this community. But it's an honor to be with you. It was an honor to be with your firemen before and your policemen. We met some great people. And these are people that are leaders, and they're just fantastic. It's a fantastic group of people, and they were very brave. I want to tell you, your fire people are so well thought of. You had big fires, and it was hard to put them out, but boy, were they brave. They were really fighting against a tough thing, and everybody in the country knows it. Everybody in the country knows it. And it was an honor to be with you. So I'll be back, and we'll work very hard. And I hope you guys can start doing your cleanup starting like tomorrow at around 12 o'clock, okay? Thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Brad.
And there you have a very long roundtable there with the President of the United States and the First Lady, meeting right there with Mayor Karen Bass, other members of Congress there, and local officials dealing with the wildfires here in Southern California, meeting in the Palisades area. The president saying due to resources they were doing one stop. He was asked to consider Altadena, to remember Altadena as well. It got contentious there a little bit with the mayor and also Congressman Brad Sherman when it comes to policy. Overall, the president sporting that number 47 fire helmet there. He is President 45 and 47. But there you have him there saying goodbye to officials as he is going to leave Southern California. It was a quick trip. He was North Carolina this morning. He's going to leave now to go to Las Vegas. He is a little bit over the time expected to be here in Southern California, staying to take questions really from anybody who asked. Members of Congress, the mayor spoke as well, and you had even some homeowners there who were in the background who actually had thoughts and questions. Reporter, anchor Alex Michelson is there on the ground. Alex, your thoughts?
That was one of the most extraordinary meetings I've ever witnessed. It was fascinating to watch the president interact with some of his harshest Democratic critics, with some of his Republican supporters, at times supporting California, at sometimes slamming California. The sort of free-wielding nature of watching it was also really interesting. You think about sometimes when President Biden would hold these briefings, it was so scripted. People literally were called on in a certain order. They read their script. They said it. And, you know, frankly, a lot of those briefings were really boring. You could talk about whether they were efficient or effective, but this was fascinating TV in real time to sort of be, Christine, you talked about earlier, I wish I could be a fly in the wall of that meeting. Well, we all were just a fly in the wall of this meeting happening in real time. And you saw some areas of agreement, the president talking about permitting reform and being able to free some of that up. But he was pressed a few times on this idea of conditional aid. And he did not say that he is going to give California everything it wants when it comes to conditional aid. He did not say we're going to give you all the money. And he was pressed a few times on that. So that's an important thing going forward. But he did talk about this idea. Joel Pollack, our friend from Breitbart News, who's a frequent guest on the issue, had an opportunity to talk about the idea of putting somebody in charge of the federal response. He was suggesting Rick Grinnell, who was sitting next to him, the former ambassador to Germany. Now we're looking at him talk to his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, right there, who's on the ground with him as he potentially moves out of here. That Rick Grinnell could be somebody that's put in charge of this. Rick Grinnell, well known here in Southern California, lives here in Southern California, and is somebody who Donald Trump trusts. So we're going to see the president head out of here. But all these characters who come from different perspectives, it seemed like at first some were hesitant to talk and to have their say, but then they realized, okay, well, if everybody's going to have their say, let me have my say. And everybody kind of got their points in and had an opportunity to talk about what was coming next. So you see the president still in there, and it seemed like, Christine, there was real bipartisan agreement in terms of celebrating firefighters, but it also was interesting that some of those members of Congress, Joel Pollack and others, really dig into California's response and criticize the response by the local leaders who happen to be sitting right next to them in the room. That was really fascinating to see in real time. I mean, it felt like, a debate show that you would see on cable news, but instead of just sort of two people with different perspectives, we're talking about the most powerful people in the world, the people that are actually in charge of the response.
Well, no surprise there are some disagreements when it comes to policy and the way California manages water, because that was an issue that had come up before the president got here to Southern California. So not a huge surprise that that actually came up in this lengthy amount of time. He had this roundtable where he literally took every single question, did not leave until basically there were no more comments, no more questions. Let's talk about how it got a little contentious between the mayor, Karen Bass, who sat right there next to the First Lady, and then the president. Let's take a look at that.
President. The mayor, please.
Yes. First of all, let me just take the opportunity to officially welcome you to Los Angeles. Really appreciate you coming, and especially you come just a few days after your inauguration. So I want you to know that your presence here is very much appreciated. Let me also say that I know you had an opportunity to see the devastation. You've seen the extreme loss, the grief that people are going through here. And we are 100% committed to getting this neighborhood rebuilt again. You mentioned a couple of things in terms of us expediting. So I signed executive directives right away so that we could cut the red tape. We could get people back building as fast as possible. And we're going to continue doing that.
Mayor, the one thing is they are saying they will not be allowed to start for 18 months.
No. That will not be the case.
Okay, I just hope you're right.
You can hold me to it.
Because 4 groups said that.
No.
That would be they should be able to do it. They should be able to start tonight.
That will not be the case. You know, first we have to take care to make sure that there's not getting rid of the hazardous waste, cleaning things up so that people can start right away. And just like you said, if somebody their house was destroyed and they're going to rebuild essentially the same, maybe a little bit longer, a little bit higher, they really shouldn't have to go through much of a process. So I want you to know that we are expediting that. We absolutely need your help. We need the federal help.
You've got it. I told you. You will have no permit problem. There will be 0 delay. And as far as I'm concerned, you already have the permit.
Well, there you have that interaction there between Mayor Karen Bass, who was the second member of that roundtable to address the president there, giving him basically an update as to what's happening on the city level as well. But also, they did get into it a little bit, Alex, further into that roundtable conversation about the removal of debris and when people could return to their homes. Mayor Bass saying maybe a week, and President Trump saying a week's too long. And if people want to get in and remove their own debris with a shovel, let them. So it's not all, you know, peace and happiness there. There was some contention there.
And we know there are a lot of people that want to get in there. So, I mean, they're both right. There is toxic debris, and it is not safe to be in there right now. But we also know that the government moves too slow for most people, and it's incredibly frustrating, the pace of all of this. When people are able to drive through and see this and they want to get in and see their stuff. So as you know, we look at some video of this, it seemed like everybody in the room got to get their main point out that they've been trying to articulate. The question is, does it move the needle at all in terms of the president's thinking? And that's, you know, so where we are right now, we are, if you're just tuning in, we're right outside where that fire station is. And within the next few, shortly, we expect some of the Democratic members of Congress and potentially some of the Republican members of Congress to walk here and to talk with us. So we're going to be going off the air shortly, but we will have some of those conversations tonight on the Fox 11 News at 10 on Fox 11, and also a special edition of our political show, The Issue Is, which is anchored this week from both Washington, D.C. and here in California, talking to many of our lawmakers on both sides of the aisle about this and about President Trump and how his term is going to impact California specifically. And Christine, as we just watched in real time, it's going to impact California significantly.
Well, we did see that roundtable. The president also did that aerial tour of the Palisades area and talked with residents there on the ground. The main thing is, on Inauguration Day, you were there, Alex, was just a few days ago. The president and First Lady making their first trip to first North Carolina, dealing with hurricane recovery, and then here in the afternoon to Southern California, his very first trip, matter of business right there. The president also saying, I have property here. I've got a home in Beverly Hills. I've got other properties here in California, keeping that in mind, and saying he hopes to come back to celebrate with Californians and those in the Palisades and Altadena as well as they recover. So, Alex, we thank you so much for your coverage there. You've got a big night still ahead, talking and getting feedback from those members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans who got to meet with the president.
And we'll see you tonight for the Fox 11 News at 10. Thanks so much.
Austin, let's listen.
Mr. Gallego. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mr. Graham. Mr. Grassley. Mr. Haggerty.
You probably don't even need me. Okay.
Ms. Hassan. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Heinrich. Mr. Hickenlooper. Ms. Hirono. Mr. Hoven. Mr. Husted. Mrs. Hyde-Smith. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Justice. Mr. Kane. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kim. Mr. King. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Lankford. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lujan. Ms. Lum.